Everything happened in less than a minute, unnoticed by anyone. Shi Jingwei stared with satisfaction at the nearly empty courtyard, finally feeling a surge of relief. She slipped out of the Shi residence in an instant and leaned casually against a large tree not far from the backyard. Raising binoculars, she watched the expressions of the people inside. Search the premises. Once negotiations concluded, the captain of the inspection team barked the order and kicked open the front door, striding inside. You men, focus your search on Commander Shi's quarters. The rest of the team filed in after him. They had expected to uncover plenty of valuables during this raid. After all, Shi Jingyue's father had once been a regiment commander. What's more, Mother Shi was a renowned red capitalist, rumored to possess immense wealth. But moments after they began rummaging through the rooms, every single person froze on the spot, utterly dumbfounded. Father Shi, Mother Shi, and the other two hung their heads dejectedly, oblivious to the commotion behind them. Mother Shi's thoughts drifted to all the possessions she had worked so hard to accumulate, now vanishing for good. Soon they would be sent to an unfamiliar place and separated from her daughter, and she could not hold back her tears. As she wiped her eyes, the four of them sensed something strange. The air had grown eerily quiet. A chill crept up their spines. They turned around, only to see the inspection team captain, who had previously maintained a neutral attitude toward Father Shi. He was wearing a thunderous scowl. His sharp, hawk-like gaze locked onto the family. Shi Bingchang, you are incredibly cunning. I never imagined you could pull this off in just 2 days. I underestimated you. Search every nook and cranny. I refuse to believe you've left nothing suspicious behind. If I uncover any other incriminating items, his voice turned icy and menacing. Father and Mother Shi stared back, thoroughly confused. They could not fathom why his mood had soured so abruptly, but there was no time to ask questions. The team rushed into the other bedrooms, and Shi hurried to follow them. The next second, she jumped in shock. Is this some kind of apparition? Mother. Father, come quickly and see. Father and Mother Shi stepped forward with suspicion, and they too froze in place, their worldview shaken to the core. The main hall, once packed full of furnishings, now held only an octagonal table and several rickety broken stools. All military, issue tea tables, double-door wooden cabinets, and military uniforms hanging on the racks had vanished without a trace. The hall looked barren, as if no one had ever lived there. Yet barely 2 minutes earlier, the room had looked completely different. What on earth had happened within those 2 minutes? What thief possessed such extraordinary skill? Worse still, they had been standing right outside, and had not heard a single sound. How could they not be terrified? No wonder the captain and his men looked so horrified. The family was far more shaken than they were. They were completely innocent. They had hidden nothing at all. Where could they possibly have stashed everything? It felt like suffering an injustice with no way to defend themselves. Father and Mother Shi exchanged a glance, both stunned beyond words. Even Shi's elder brother, who remained indifferent to nearly everything, narrowed his eyes, wondering if he was hallucinating. Contrary to the family's stunned bewilderment, Shi Jingwei let out a quiet laugh. She shifted her consciousness into her spatial storage and began carefully tallying the spoils she had collected today. She opened the well-preserved Camp Horwood chest at the top left, lined with moisture-proof materials. Her eyes lit up instantly. Though she had suspected what she would find, she still gasped with delight when she saw the array of fine fabrics: Nanjing brocade, Suzhou embroidered satin, thick vintage cotton, foreign wool cloth, camel fleece, fine gauze, and dark patterned poplin in navy and pale moonwhite. These were precious treasures. She reached out to touch them. The material was silky, smooth, and finely woven, of exceptional quality. Remarkably, they remained in perfect condition after all these years, a testament to the wisdom of past generations. Shi Jingwei already owned many beautiful garments in her space, yet most were modern styles rarely worn in this era. Cloth ration tickets were extremely scarce at this time. Even with money, fine fabric was hard to come by, let alone such rare varieties. She could already imagine the lovely clothes she would make from them later. Eagerly, she opened the other chests, which were nearly all filled with clothing and luxury textiles. Republic-era cheongsams, lambskin coats, wool cloaks, brand-new hand-sewn cloth shoes, embroidered satin slippers, leather belts, and wool mattress covers. There was everything one could wish for. The thought that all these treasures would have fallen into the hands of the ungrateful female lead if she had not arrived filled Shi Jingwei with rage. But she was here now. The original female lead would not get to claim a single thing. She glanced coldly toward the Sher family, specifically at Sher Yin's back. She let out a cold huff. Then she opened more than a dozen iron chests stacked beneath the Camp Horwood trunk. Too impatient to search for keys, she sliced the locks apart with a spatial blade. As the lid swung open, golden light dazzled Sher Jingyue's eyes. 4 chests in a row were filled to the brim with large and small standard gold bars. In addition, there were Guangxiu Yuanbao silver coins, Yuan Shirkai silver dollars, and Qing Dynasty dragon silver coins. I've struck it rich. All of these are antiques. Gold bars served as universal hard currency even in the apocalypse, let alone in this world. Even Sher Jingyue's heart raced with excitement, and she could not suppress a smile. For the first time, she knew what it felt like to attain sudden wealth: gold leaves, gold ingots, gold hairpins, gold bracelets, gold necklaces, precious gold artifacts piled up without end. Another chest brimmed with dazzling jewelry, rubies, sapphires, agate, and pearl ornaments of every kind. Each piece was exquisite enough to stir a stir if brought out in public. Ordinary girls would undoubtedly adore them. Yet Sher Jingyue cared little for such adornments. They meant nothing to her, and she casually set them aside. There were also antiques, calligraphy scrolls, and porcelain. Hatian jade discs, jade bangles, jade pendants, vintage jade rui scepters, hollow-carved jade huang, their surfaces smooth and warm, each wrapped separately in oiled paper. Blue and white vases, pastel longevity peach celestial vases, Lonquan celadone, and thin-shell white glazed bowls were packed in wooden crates lined with straw, free of cracks or chips. Every artifact was stunning and invaluable. There were also ancient land deeds, old maps, vintage pocket watches, bronze compasses, carved bronze ink boxes, sandalwood sculptures, ivory trinkets, complete 4 treasures of the study, discontinued fountain pens, and mechanical watches. Do you think hiding these things will let you stage a comeback? Even if you concealed them, how would you transport them to the southwest? Let's move out. She had just finished inspecting the items from the cellar and was about to count all the ration tickets she had collected from the Sher residence when she spotted radios and television sets. Meanwhile, the entire inspection team emerged, their faces ashen and furious. They shot venomous glares at the 4 members of the Sher family before storming off, cursing angrily. A sense of foreboding washed over the Shers, who hurried back inside to check the rooms. Once again, they were stunned speechless. Gulping hard after standing frozen for what felt like ages, Sher Yin finally broke the silence. She stared in terror at the empty house and clutched Mother Sher's hand tightly, her voice trembling. Mother, could there be a vengeful spirit in our home? She even feared the walls themselves might come alive and swallow her whole at any moment. No one spoke, overcome with shock. Though they knew better than to believe superstition, they could not help but wonder. What else could explain everything except supernatural forces? They knew exactly how the house had looked earlier. Before anyone could reply, Sher Yin urged them anxiously. Mother, father, brother, we need to get out of here quickly. This place is terrifying. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She was convinced the house harbored a malicious presence and dared not look at the home where she had lived for more than a decade. She had no idea this was only the beginning of the shocks to come. Thud, thud. A sharp knock echoed at the door. The family, still trapped in fright, jumped in alarm. Sher Yin screamed at the top of her lungs. She spun around instinctively, and when she saw the figure in the doorway, her eyes widened to the limit. Ghost? A ghost? Sher Yin shrieked and hid behind Mother Sher, staring in terror at Sher Jingyue, who wore a bright smile. Consumed by guilt and linking the strange events to her fears, Sher Yin immediately assumed Sher Jingyue had died and returned to seek revenge. Mother, father, brother, Sher Jingyue blinked innocently, looking at each of them in turn. Then she fixed her gaze on Sher Yin and drew out her words meaningfully. And, sister, I'm home. Surprised? Delighted? There was no joy to be found, only overwhelming terror. Sher Yin nearly fainted from fright. Mother Sher and Father Sher stared at the face they had missed endlessly, rubbing their eyes, wondering if fear had conjured a hallucination. But no matter how hard they blinked, Sher Jingyue stood before them, flesh and blood. Shock melted away, replaced by overwhelming joy. Mother Sher covered her mouth in disbelief, tears streaming down her cheeks. She took 2 hurried steps forward. Yeah. Is it really my yeah? She could not move another step. Her arm was seized tightly. Sher Yin pointed at Sher Jingyue, frantic. Mother, don't go near her. It's a ghost come to avenge herself. Mother Sure paid her no heed. Her daughter, whom everyone feared was lost forever, had appeared before her. How could she contain her excitement? Right now, all she saw was her own daughter. She shot an irritated glance at Shireen. Stop talking nonsense. She pulled her arm free and pulled Shi Jingwei into a tight embrace. The moment she felt her daughter's warmth and pulse, fresh tears spilled. She finally believed the child she had grieved for had truly returned. My darling, is it really you? Am I dreaming? Mother Shi clung to Shi Jingwei, hot tears soaking her shoulder. The warm tears stirred faint ripples in Shi Jingwei's long, unfeeling heart, as if burned by fire. A surge of sorrow welled up, and tears rolled down her cheeks as she hugged Mother Shi back. This must be the original girl's mother. Such a gentle woman. Memories of her own mother in her past life surfaced unbidden. When the zombie outbreak erupted, her mother had pushed her aside without hesitation to protect her younger brother, slamming shut the door that led to safety, leaving her to fend for herself. She had long known her mother favored boys over girls, yet that moment had broken her heart completely. A flash of hostility flickered across Shi Jingyue's eyes. She felt a twinge of envy toward the original girl. Yes, mother. I'm home. Pulling herself together, Shi Jingwei offered the most genuine smile she had worn in a long time. She gently pulled back a little and wiped the tears from Mother Shi's cheeks. Don't cry. Look, I'm safe and sound. She copied the way the original girl used to act coquettishly, offering an innocent smile. Yeah, you've suffered so much. How did you grow so thin? What happened to you all this time? Where did you go? We searched everywhere for you. We thought we would never see you again. Mother Shi stared at her without blinking, trembling fingers brushing her face. Seeing her tanned and gaunt only deepened her distress. Yeah. Father Shi stepped forward, placing his hands on her shoulders. He looked her up and down, overcome with emotion. Thank goodness. Thank goodness you're back. Even her quiet, reserved brother cracked a faint smile. It's good to have you home. Quickly, yeah. Where did you come from? Are you hungry? I'll make you the fried dough cakes you love. I kept making them every day, just in case you came back suddenly. Mother Shi turned toward the kitchen excitedly. I'm not hungry, Mother. Shi Jingwei grabbed her hand and led her to the octagonal table. The whole family sat down together. Shireen watched the warm reunion unfold. She was gradually convinced Shi Jingwei was not a vengeful spirit, yet anxiety gnawed at her. She was the one who had set everything in motion back then. If the truth came out, no, she could not let that happen. Shi Yin's mind raced as she replayed the events of that day. Then she breathed a quiet sigh of relief. She had made an excuse to leave that day. The man who had acted was her long, estranged uncle. Shi Jingwei had never met him, so she could never connect him to Shireen. Even if she found out, she could never prove Shireen had plotted with her uncle. Everyone knew Shireen and her uncle rarely got along. With that worry set aside, bitterness rose inside her as she watched the loving family. She stood alone, an outsider looking in. Memories of how Shi Jingwei had been cherished before her disappearance flooded her mind, and jealousy and loathing grew stronger. Why did she have to come back? But then she glanced at the empty room, and a faint smirk tugged at her lips. So she had returned. Did she think she was still the beloved young lady of the house? She would be dragged down to hardship alongside them now. Shireen interrupted the tender moment. Sister, why have you come back now? What made you return at this time? Father was reported to the authorities. Our home has been searched, and we are being sent to labor on a farm soon. Her tone sounded concerned, as if she truly worried for Shi Jingwei, breaking the warm atmosphere. The joyful expressions on Father Shi, Mother Shi, and their son faded instantly. Her elder brother frowned, shooting her a displeased look. Shi Jingyue's lips curved upward. Had she already lost her patience? Beneath the feigned worry, she clearly heard undisguised delight at her misfortune. What a tragedy. After a long silence, Mother Shi looked at Shi Jingwei with tearful remorse. We failed you, yeah. Her voice shook. Our family is ruined. You should not have come back at such a time. Grief filled her heart as she hurried to push Shi Jingwei toward the door. You need to leave now, yeah. Pretend you never came here, pretend you never saw us today. Did anyone see you arrive? Listen to your mother and go quickly, Father Shi added, gazing at her as if trying to memorize every feature of her face. Fathers often expressed their love silently, and now tears welled in his eyes. He grieved that he could no longer provide a good life for his daughter. Sister, take this money. Her elder brother reached under his wheelchair and pulled out a small cloth pouch. It held cash and grain ration tickets he had saved for their labor assignment, yet he handed it to Shi Jingwei without hesitation. It's only 200 yuan. But if you spend carefully, it can sustain you for quite a while. Shi Jingwei looked at the worried family, urging her to flee, and smiled sincerely. I won't. Auntie, uncle. Just as Shi Jingwei was about to tell them she planned to go to the farm with them, a loud, excited voice echoed from outside the door. Recognizing the voice immediately, Shi Jingwei raised an eyebrow. How interesting. The unfaithful man and the scheming woman had both arrived. This man was Shinjun, the original girl's fiancé. His father and Shi Jingyue's father were wartime comrades, and Shi's father had once saved Shin's father's life on the battlefield. The two families had maintained close ties for years. A childhood engagement had been arranged between the two, with exchanged betrothal gifts. They had grown up side by side. As a boy, Shinjun had always followed the original girl around, sharing his treats with her and fighting off anyone who bullied her. Gentle and caring, he had naturally won the young girl's heart. Knowing they were meant to marry, she fell for him easily. Both families were happy to see them grow close. Yet somewhere along the way, everything changed. Though Shinjun still stayed near the original girl, his eyes secretly lingered on Shireen. He had fallen for Shireen. If it were only a crush, she might have let it slide. But, recalling the memories of the original host and the fleeting glimpse of that scene, a cold glint flickered in Shi Jingyue's eyes. That despicable man had clearly seen the original host being dragged into a vehicle by Shi Yin's uncle. The original host had even begged him for help, yet he'd pretended to see nothing. The original host had clung to him as her last ray of hope the moment she realized he'd witnessed everything, only for him to crush all her hope. Even when Shi's father and mother searched desperately for their daughter, the man had never volunteered a single shred of information. He was the worst kind of scoundrel. Uncle, Auntie, are you home? I heard your family is being sent down to the countryside. I know Jingwei is still missing, but Ian and I grew up side by side. I can't bear the thought of her suffering along with you. That's why I've come to break off my engagement with Jingwei and marry Ian instead. This way, she won't have to endure hardship. Jingwei cared deeply for her sister. I'm sure she would offer us her blessing if she ever found out. I've already convinced my parents. All I ask is that you. His footsteps drew near, yet Shinjun's words cut off abruptly, like a chicken with its neck wrung. He stared in disbelief at Shi Jingwei, who had vanished for months, now standing alive right in front of him. Brother Jun, long time no see. Why are you stunned? Aren't you surprised to see me? Shi Jingwei curled her lips into a sweet smile and called out to him on purpose. I'm back. Don't call me that. I'm here to cancel our engagement. There was no joy of reuniting with his fiancée, only sheer fright. Shinjun's face darkened instantly. Shi Jingjin, her elder brother, frowned sharply, shooting him a look of displeasure. Shi's father and mother, who had been drowning in despair, suddenly lit up. They suddenly remembered their daughter's fiancé and rushed forward to grasp Shi Jingyue's hands excitedly. Jingwei, your fiancé is here. Worry over their daughter's future clouded their minds. They ignored Shinjun's earlier words and the faint unease stirring in their hearts. She waved at him quickly. Xiaojun, you've arrived. It's perfect timing that Jingwei has come home. The two of you can get married as planned. We know you've always been a good boy and your lifelong wish was to marry our Jingwei. We're sure you grieved deeply when she disappeared. But you don't need to grieve any longer, Jingwei is back. You don't need to worry about Ian either. We've found another suitable match for her. All you need to do is marry our Jingwei. I won't. Before Mother Shi could finish her joyful speech, Shinjun cast aside all his previous respect and hesitant demeanor. Shi's father and mother stared at him in confusion, furrowing their brows. Shinjun paid no heed to their expressions. He glared at Shi Jingwei with disgust and sneered. I will never marry such a fickle woman. Every person in the room paled at once. Oblivious to their reactions, he pointed an angry finger at her. You've been missing for months. Who knows what sort of people you've been associating with? Crack. Shi Jingjin's calm eyes narrowed sharply. He squeezed his fist hard, snapping the rickety wooden stool beside him clean in two. He grabbed one of the broken stool legs and hurled it without hesitation. It struck Shinjun's leg dead on. Bang. Crack. Caught completely off guard, Shinjun let out a scream and crumpled to his knees right in front of Shi Jingwei. Shi Jingwei turned to look at her elder brother in delight, catching the loathing and ferocity in his gaze. She nearly whistled in approval. Fierce and decisive. Truly her elder brother. Shireen, who had been quietly pleased with the turn of events, jumped in fright at the sudden commotion. She stared at Shi Jingchen in shock. Bitterness welled up inside her once more. She never imagined her elder brother, who seemed indifferent to everything, would resort to violence, and all for Shi Jingwei. Blood really was thicker than water. Unlike her. Whenever she tried to speak to him, he always brushed her off coldly. You. Shi Jingchen, you're asking for trouble. Shinjun's eyes blazed red. He glared icily up at Shi Jingchen, struggling to rise to his feet. His voice was hoarse with rage. Do you still think you're that renowned soldier? You're nothing but a cripple now. How dare you strike me? Crack. Bang. Before Shi Jingchen could respond, Shi Jingwei frowned in annoyance and stepped forward. She kicked his injured knee hard. Shinjun, who had nearly stood up, crashed back down to his knees before her. He had no time to cry out before Shi Jingwei stepped on the back of his head with a cold smirk. Who said you could stand? What makes you think you can speak to my brother like that? Her voice carried a sharp, menacing edge. Her foot pressed down on his skull with crushing weight. Though Shinjun stood nearly 6 feet tall, he could not break free from Shi Jingwei's hold no matter how hard he fought. The other 3 onlookers were stunned by her ruthless bearing. Once Mother Shi recovered, her eyes stung with tears. Her heart ached for her daughter. Seeing how fluid and decisive her movements were, she thought of the gentle girl she once knew. How much suffering must she have endured to change so drastically? It was as if she had escaped the gates of hell. Once, she would whimper in pain whenever her father tried to teach her self-defense. But now, Shi Jingchen froze for a split second. When he heard her defend him, his eyes brightened, warmth spreading through his chest. Damn you. You shrew. Humiliation burned through Shinjun as he realized Shi Jingwei was forcing his face into the dirt beneath her foot. His face turned beet red as he strained to break free. Shouting shrilly toward Shi's parents. Are you just going to let her insult me like this? I swear I won't let this rest. I will tell my father everything. How dare your family treat me this way? And you still expect me to marry her? Don't even dream of it. Our family is calling off this engagement for good. He was overcome with rage, his voice shrill and frantic. You can get down on your knees and beg, and I still won't marry her. The whole lot of you will be sent to that barren land and suffer for the rest of your lives. Sister, how can you treat Brother Jun this way? Have you forgotten how kind he was to you? Let him go at once. Shireen finally snapped out of her daze. She hurried forward as if to intervene, barely hiding the glee in her eyes. Shi Jingwei might have had a chance to marry Shinjun and escape their fate, but now… Even after coming back, she was still foolish. Though she seethed inwardly, she turned to Shi's parents with a helpless expression. Father, Mother, are you going to let her act recklessly? How did Jingwei become so unreasonable? Is this really the obedient sister I once knew? Brother Jun came here intending to help our family. How did he end up injured like this? Is there something wrong with him wanting to lend us a hand? By behaving like this, how will you face his parents? What will become of all of us? Shireen wore a pained expression, as though she only cared for the family. She expected Shi's parents to grow resentful of Shi Jingwei. To her surprise, Mother Shi frowned and cut her off bluntly. You must not speak of your sister that way. Father Shi also looked at Shireen with displeasure, thinking she sided with outsiders. Shi Jingwei may have gone too far, but Shinjun had brought it all upon himself. Shireen failed to notice their shift in mood and sighed heavily. Mother, I know you feel sorry for sister after she just came home. But if no one points out her bad habits now, she will land our family in trouble sooner or later. I'm only looking out for her. She turned to Shi Jingwei, her gaze heavy with reproach. Sister, we are all thrilled you've returned. But why would you stir up trouble the moment you come back? What kind of people have you been mixing with all these months to make you? Slap. Before she could finish her sentence, Shi Jingwei stepped forward and slapped her sharply, a cold smirk playing on her lips. I almost forgot about you, the ingrate who always sides with outsiders. The crisp sound echoed through the room, leaving everyone stunned. Shi's father, mother and brother stared in shock at the cold, unyielding Shi Jingwei. After several long seconds, Mother Shi murmured softly. Jingwei, this is your elder sister. Shireen clutched her stinging cheek, eyes blown wide with shock. She stared blankly at Shi Jingwei. When she recovered, rage and malice flooded her eyes. She instinctively raised her hand to strike back. Halfway through the motion, she seemed to reconsider. She turned to Shi's parents, eyes glistening like a wronged rabbit as she faced Shi Jingwei. Sister, you hit me. What have I ever done to you? Slap. Sure, Jingwei had no patience for her fake innocent act. She delivered another loud slap to her other cheek. Go ahead and try to hit me back if you want. Her tone was casual, and Sure Yin's face swelled up instantly. Mother Sure could bear it no longer. She had raised Sure Yin all these years. Seeing her crying pitifully, she rushed over to hold her tightly. She looked at Sure Jingwei with disapproval. Jingwei, how could you? Mother, shhh, wait a moment. Rest assured, I haven't lost my mind. I will show you the truth. Sure Jingwei held up one finger with a gentle smile, signaling her mother to stay quiet. Mother Sure could not guess what her daughter planned, but her trust in Jingwei outweighed everything else. Confusion flickered across her face. The truth? Try not to take this to heart. I'm sure Jingwei isn't acting on purpose. She's only just returned and must be under great stress. Try to bear with her. Mother Sure sat Sure Yin down and comforted her gently, blowing softly on her swollen cheeks. She was so occupied consoling Sure Yin that she missed the raging hatred burning in Sure Yin's eyes. Not take it to heart? How could she possibly let this go? She had been publicly slapped repeatedly in front of everyone, humiliated beyond measure. She would never let Sure Jingwei get away with this. As expected, things changed once the biological daughter came home. Her parents were horribly biased. Even after she was hurt so badly, they told her to endure it. She had been right all along. No matter what she did, she could never compare to the blood daughter. Sure Jingwei was relieved to see her mother would not blindly defend Sure Yin and turn against her, unlike the plots in many novels. The Sure family was not beyond saving. She turned her attention away from Sure Yin and lifted her foot off Shinjun's head. Before he could leap up and attack her, she grabbed his hair, forcing him to crane his neck and look straight at her. You want to break off the engagement? Fine by me. I'm not an unreasonable person. Shinjun stared at her in shock, then scoffed with disdain. What trick are you planning now? Are you trying to play hard to get? Don't waste your breath. I will never marry you. You'll just have to follow your disgraced parents and suffer in the countryside. You talk far too much, Sure Jingwei scoffed and slapped him across the face. You struck me again. Shinjun clutched his cheek, thoroughly confused. What had he said wrong this time? I hit you for good reason. Your entire Shin family is ungrateful. Remember, it was your family who begged my parents to arrange this childhood engagement. But now that our family has fallen on hard times, you come to kick us while we're down. However, don't imagine your Shin family is some noble household I'm desperate to join. Let me make this clear. It is not your family, not you Shinjun, ending this engagement. I, Sure Jingwei, find you disgusting. Your character is rotten, you are worthless, and you cannot even stand against me. You are not worthy of me. Sure Jingwei looked at Shinjun as if gazing at trash, full of mockery and contempt. I formally declare our engagement broken off. Her resolute words hung in the air, and silence fell over the room. Sure's father and mother were stunned by her unwavering determination. Father Sure quickly thought of the upcoming exile and opened his mouth to dissuade her. If she married Shinjun, she would not have to suffer alongside them. He was about to speak when Sure Jingchen grabbed his arm and shook his head subtly. He watched Sure Jingwei with quiet approval and hope. Infuriated by her scathing words, Shinjun burned with anger, yet the thought of being free of her made him snort. Good. Our family does not want such a crude, troublesome woman burdening us. Slap. Slap. He did not finish his sentence before 2 more slaps landed on his face. Still chattering? Listen closely. Sure Jingwei barked sharply. Since the engagement is ended, hand over the betrothal token my family gave you at once. Sure Jingwei ignored the venom in his eyes and held out her hand with a faint smile. At the mention of the token, Shinjun flinched guiltily and stole a nervous glance at Sure Yin beside him. Sure Yin's body stiffened for a split second. Recovering quickly, Shinjun lifted his chin and spoke defiantly. That was ages ago. The token has long been lost. Is that so? Sure Jingwei eyed him meaningfully. Before he could react, she raised her hand once more. Slap. 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 Will you give it back? Will you give it back? Return my token. Return my token. Sure Jingwei landed more than 10 slaps in a row, leaving Shinjun dazed and dizzy. The other 3 swallowed nervously, finally understanding the fiery temper of the daughter, who had returned to them. She struck without hesitation when provoked. Still, they could not help feeling proud. She was just like them in their younger days. Sure's father and mother exchanged a quiet, relieved glance. At the very least, their daughter would never let anyone bully her, no matter where she went. Shireen trembled with fear. She could barely recognize Shi Jingwei. What hardships had she endured to turn from that gentle, timid girl into such a fierce person? Stop hitting me. Stop. I beg you. I'll give it back. Fine. I'll pay you compensation if the token is truly gone. Just stop hitting me. When he saw Shi Jingwei slip off her shoe as if ready to strike again, Shinjun's eyes widened in terror. He covered his face, his voice cracking with fright. He could have kicked himself. He should have known this was a terrible day to come here. In barely half an hour, he had suffered more slaps than in his entire life combined. Must she really go that far? A dark glint flashed across Shinjun's eyes. Revenge could wait. He would not let her get away with humiliating him like this. She would not escape exile. He would report her as soon as he returned home. Oh? So it really is lost. Shi Jingwei did not give him an answer. She smiled meaningfully at him, then strode toward Shireen before anyone could react. She flashed a sweet smile at Mother Shi, who was about to speak, then pulled Shireen roughly out of her embrace. Shireen stared at her in terror as Shi Jingwei reached toward her neck. Shireen realized what she intended and pressed a hand tightly to her chest, watching her warily. What are you doing? She turned to Mother Shi. Mother, look at sister. Mother, I'm scared. TCH, Shi Jingwei ignored her whimpering. She pried her hand away and pulled hard. A delicate jade ruby carved into the shape of a dragon fell into Shi Jingwei's palm. At the sight of the jade ornament, Shi's father and mother froze. They looked toward Shireen with dawning suspicion. Isn't this the betrothal token our family gave the Shin family? How did it end up with you? Could it be that the two of you have been? Shi Yin's face flushed bright red. She met Mother Shi's disappointed gaze. Mother, let me explain. What is there left to explain? Do you not know this was meant for the engagement? Or will you claim he forced you to wear it? Don't pretend to be innocent after what you've done. Shi Jingwei stared at Shireen coldly, stripping away her disguise without mercy. She turned to stare at the stunned Shinjun with a grin. I knew all along. You gave the betrothal token to Shireen ages ago. How touching your devotion is. Too bad, she never planned to marry you. Shinjun lifted his head abruptly, not to mock her, but out of grievance. You knew it was with her, yet you still hit me? You did this on purpose. Hee, I hit you because you deserve it. Shi Jingwei shrugged casually. Shi Jingwei, why did you have to come back? You should have died out there. Why come back at all? Shireen could no longer contain her anger. She lunged toward Shi Jingwei with her nails bared. Give my things back to me. Ever since Shi Jingwei snatched the pendant away, an unprecedented surge of panic had seized Shi Yin's heart. She felt as if something immensely precious had been lost. Her heart raced uncontrollably, and restlessness gnawed at her relentlessly. She could barely restrain her actions. Tisk, lost your temper now? Give it back to you? Have some shame. Do you think keeping it for a few years makes it yours? You're nothing but a thief who stole what belongs to others. Shi Jingwei tossed the pendant into her spatial storage casually with a sneer, then sidestepped. She effortlessly dodged Shi Yin's lunging hand. Watching her crash clumsily onto the floor, she strode forward a few steps and looked down at her from above. She let out a cold laugh. This is only the beginning. Do you think no one knows what you did? You made an excuse to slip away back then and told your uncle to sell me to a rural family to be their wife. Nothing stays hidden forever, Shireen. Her tone remained calm, yet the words were like a stone crashing onto a still river, stirring up raging waves. Shi Yin's pupils constricted sharply. Her heart hammered wildly, and overwhelming terror washed over her. She instinctively glanced at Father and Mother Shi, then shouted in a frantic denial. You're lying. You wandered off on your own. This has nothing to do with me. I reported you missing to the police right away. She stared anxiously at her adoptive parents. Mom, Dad, please believe me. Sister must be making this up. You know what kind of person I am. How could I ever do something like that? What's more, my uncle almost sold me once, and you saved me. How could I repay kindness with betrayal? Despite her words, her hands trembled violently, betraying her inner turmoil. She could not fathom how Shi Jingwei knew everything. Could her uncle have told her? Damn it. What? What's going on? Yeah, tell us everything. Is this really what Shireen did? Mother Shi was stunned by the devastating revelation, nearly collapsing. Father Shi supported her, steadying her on her feet. Even so, her eyes brimmed with grief and disbelief. She could not accept that the daughter she had taken in out of compassion and raised carefully for years was capable of such cruelty. She had raised the wrong person all along. It is absolutely true. My disappearance was never an accident. She planned every bit of it deliberately. She was consumed by jealousy. She thought that as long as I was around, your attention would always lean toward me. Meanwhile, her uncle came to her demanding money, threatening to pester her endlessly if she refused. So for her own sake, and to get rid of me, the thorn in her side, she colluded with her uncle and sold me. Biting cold hatred laced Shi Jingyue's voice, emotions belonging to the original host surging within her. No, that's not what happened. Shireen shook her head frantically, roaring, her heart drowning in chaos. She could not understand how Shi Jingyue knew every detail. What on earth was going on? Mom and Dad, don't listen to her one-sided words. How could I possibly do such a thing? Seeing the disappointment, anger, and regret swelling in her adoptive parents' eyes, Shi Yin's unease intensified. She had planned to cut ties with the Shi family and report them, yet she dared not admit it right now. If she confessed, if word spread that she had sold her adoptive younger sister, the daughter of the people who rescued her, how would others see her? How would she face the world afterward? Ordinary folk held deep contempt for such ungrateful acts in this era. The thought of public condemnation being pointed at wherever she went, even having her story printed in the newspaper, drained all color from her face. She scrambled on her knees toward Mother Shi, grabbing her hands desperately and screaming hoarsely. Mom, I'm your daughter too. Won't you believe me? She pointed angrily at Shi Jingyue. Besides, ever since she came back, everything in this family has turned upside down. Her personality has completely changed. I suspect she isn't my sister at all. She's doing this on purpose, trying to tear our family apart, to make you hate me. She's framing me with malicious schemes. Enough. Mother Shi slapped Shireen hard across the cheek. She is my daughter. I would know my own child. How could there be another person who looks exactly like her? Disappointment and anger simmered in her eyes. She roughly pulled Shi Yin's hands away from her clothes. If this were all a lie, why would she frame you? You two used to get along well. She would never act this way unless she truly endured all of this. Yaya has always been kind. She never tells lies. Besides, Shireen, can't you see how flustered you are? If you're innocent, why are you so agitated? Why have you changed so drastically? Shireen froze completely. Mother Shi stared coldly at her. Upon closer look, the hands resting beside her thighs were shaking, proof that her heart was far from calm. She took several deep breaths, digging her nails into her palms to keep herself from collapsing. Her voice turned sharp and frigid once more. You have let me down terribly. I deeply regret taking you in. You are just like your birth father, cold-hearted and ungrateful. I treated you and Yaya equally. Whatever good things we had, you both received the same share. But why did you do this? Even when we faced impending relocation, your birth father still tried his best to secure a way out for you, hoping you wouldn't suffer alongside us. And how did you repay us? Her voice was icy, stripped of all the warmth it once held. Every word cut into Shireen like an invisible blade. Shi Yin's face paled visibly, growing more panicked by the second. She shook her head repeatedly, then slumped onto the floor in terror. I didn't do it. I really didn't. She shook her head instinctively, yet hatred churned fiercely inside her. Her eyes drifted nervously toward the doorway. A flicker of relief washed over her. Thankfully, they were on the second floor. The guards had blocked the entrance earlier, so the neighbors gathered to watch could not get close enough to hear everything. They should not have overheard any of this. Father Shi and Shi Jingyue remained silent, watching the chaotic scene with grim expressions. Still, they did not jump to conclusions. Suspicion and contemplation lingered in their gazes. Still pretending ignorance. A hint of mockery edged Shi Jingyue's tone, yet it carried an overwhelming pressure. We have an eyewitness, you know. The drawn-out sentence made everyone's heart skip a beat. Shireen jolted in fright. An eyewitness? Am I right, Shinjun? Shi Jingyue shouted sharply, her piercing gaze locking onto Shinjun. The moment those burning eyes landed on him, Shinjun felt as if he were being hunted by a ferocious beast. The hair stood on end across his body, and cold sweat soaked his back. His throat tightened, and he could not utter a single word. He lowered his head even more out of guilt. Shinjun, we grew up side by side. You saw me being abducted, yet what did you do? Even a stranger would not stand by and watch. But you? What did you do? Answer me. Shi Jingyue raised her voice sharply. The killing aura forged in the apocalypse washed over Shinjun overwhelmingly. He felt as if a blade hung suspended above his head. If his answer displeased her, the blade would fall, taking his life. Memories of brutal beating flooded his mind. Shinjun stiffened, lifting his head instinctively to meet Shi Yin's eyes. I didn't know it was you." He clapped a hand over his mouth the instant he realized what he had said, yet it was too late. His half-admission turned Mother Shi's eyes bloodshot. "Beast? I'll beat you, you beast." She kicked the terrified Shi beside her, then lunged toward Shinjun in a rage. She scratched wildly at his face, her voice shrill and furious. "You were there. You saw everything, yet you did nothing to stop it. You watched our Yaya get kidnapped. You stood by silently while we searched everywhere for her, never uttering a single word. You're inhuman." Mother Shi nearly fainted from grief. Father Shi's face darkened, his fists clenched tight as he gasped for breath, consumed by rage. He seethed with anger and blamed himself for misjudging people. He had once even considered entrusting his daughter to this young man. He squeezed his eyes shut for several seconds to steady himself. When he opened them again, he strode forward and kicked Shinjun hard on the knee. "You bastard! Don't hit my face, don't scratch me." "I'm sorry, uncle." Shinjun covered his already swollen face in panic. He cursed himself for coming alone today. He could not fight back, could not argue, and could only endure the beating. After kicking Shinjun, Father Shi turned his sinister, dangerous gaze toward Shireen. "Dad, listen to me. All of this was my uncle's doing." Shireen trembled under that stare. Slap. Father Shi marched forward and struck her hard across the face. A veteran soldier, he put all his strength into the blow. Caught off guard, Shireen spun and crashed onto the floor. "Don't call me Dad. You are not worthy. You have disappointed us beyond measure. You are no longer part of the Shi family. Your birth father is selfish, your uncle is vicious, and you are no different. I should never have agreed to take you in when my wife asked." Disgust filled Father Shi's eyes. No trace of the affection he once held for her remained. "Dad, how can you say that? How can you strike me? My heart is broken. Woo, I only made a mistake accidentally." Shireen flinched from his unfamiliar gaze and reached out to grab his hand. Father Shi pushed her away ruthlessly. "Get away." He seemed to age in an instant. A flicker of pity crossed his face, yet it was drowned out by sorrow and revulsion. "You are no longer my daughter. Do not call me Dad again." "Please, Dad," panic welled up inside Shireen. It was not that she cherished them deeply. If she truly cared, she would never have reported them. The real problem was that Father Shi had not yet given her the token, nor told her who she could seek refuge with. Her household registration still listed them as family. If she failed to secure permission to follow a military spouse, she would be sent away for relocation alongside them. She could not bear that fate. In that moment, she wished she could kill Shi Jingwei. Why had she returned at such a critical moment? She exposed everything the second she came back. It was utterly hateful. If only she had arrived later. Shireen could have taken the token from Father Shi, fled far away and married a serviceman to avoid hardship. She had made alternate plans. Her birth father had visited her half a month prior, claiming he had connections at the Household Registration Bureau. He promised to arrange to transfer her residency. But the arrangement had not yet been finalized. "Mom, brother, Dad, I beg you. I didn't mean it. Please give me one more chance." Seeing Father Shi would not soften, Shireen scrambled toward Mother Shi and Shi Jingchen, kowtowing repeatedly with tear-filled eyes. "Mom," she screamed hoarsely. "My uncle forced me. You have to believe me. You raised me for so long. How could I be so cruel? I suffered too, tormented by my conscience. I wanted to confess many times, but he threatened to break my legs if I spoke up. Mom, I was scared." Mother Shi wiped her tears nonstop, refusing to look at her. Her heart ached with despair. Nothing hurt more than learning the adopted daughter she loved had harmed her biological child. She could only feel grateful that her birth daughter was still alive. She thought of all the suffering Shi Jingwei might have endured, while Shireen enjoyed their care and comfort year after year. The last trace of maternal affection for Shireen vanished, replaced by hatred. Shireen lowered her head in despair, then lifted her eyes hopefully toward Shi Jingchen. But he only stared at her coldly. "You are not my sister. It's all your fault. You cannot possibly be Shi Jingwei. Who exactly are you?" Having lost all hope, Shireen spun around and glared furiously at Shi Jingwei. "Tisk. Well, well. Why are you putting on such a pitiful act, Shireen?" Shi Jingwei stepped forward, squatting down to tower over her. She suddenly reached out, gripping Shi Yin's chin and forcing her to meet her gaze. Why pretend to be a victim? Why act as if you cannot bear to part with mom, dad, and brother? Have you forgotten who reported the Shi family? Shi Jingwei pulled a signed accusation letter from her bag and waved it in front of Shi Yin's face. Watching her panic surge again, she raised her voice sharply. Speak. Oh. Shi Jingwei glanced meaningfully at father and mother Shi, who were stunned once more and smiled. Let me guess. It seems mom and dad haven't given you the military token yet, nor told you who to seek out for help. Oh dear, I suppose I accidentally ruined your plans. My apologies, of course. Though her words sounded apologetic, there was not a hint of remorse in her eyes. You liar. Shut up. I didn't do this. Shi Yin was utterly shocked. She could not fathom how Shi Jingwei had gotten hold of her accusation letter. She knew if father and mother Shi laid eyes on this document, she would be finished, with no chance of living a comfortable life ever again. She lunged forward once more. I'll tear your mouth apart. Tisk. Flying into a rage again? A smile tugged at Shi Jingyue's lips, yet her eyes were cold. She lifted her leg and kicked Shi Yin squarely in the face, sending her crashing onto the ground without mercy. No secret stays hidden forever. Did you think you could get away with everything? Shi Jingwei watched her features twist with terror, rage, and shock, and delivered 2 sharp slaps without hesitation. Father Shi strode forward with a dark expression and took the accusation letter from Shi Jingwei. As he read every line and saw the name of the accuser clearly written on the paper, his heart seemed to be struck violently. His face turned icy, and he crumpled the letter tightly in his fist. Old Shi, is it really Shi Yin who filed the report? Mother Shi's gaze blurred. Her lips trembled as she asked. When he did not reply, she hurried forward, snatched the letter and read it. All color drained from her face instantly. Her body, already unsteady after successive blows, went limp. She stared at Shi Yin with an unfamiliar gaze, unable to comprehend how the daughter she had doted on could commit such acts. Mother Shi had poured more love into Shi Yin than anyone else in the family. Ever since Shi Jingwei vanished, she had devoted all her energy to Shi Yin, showering her with endless affection and the best of everything. And this was how she was repaid. Learning that the girl she cherished had not only harmed her biological daughter, but also pushed the whole family toward ruin crushed her spirit. Her heart sank to the bottom, throbbing in agony. They had planned to use all their connections to help her escape hardship. But she was the one who brought disaster upon them. She was the one who hurt their daughter. She had treated such an evil person like treasure all this time. Huh. Wonderful, truly wonderful. Haha, what a good daughter I have. Mother Shi swayed unsteadily, tears of regret pooling in her eyes. Shi Jingwei hurried forward to support her. Mom, don't get upset. She isn't worth it. She patted her back gently to soothe her. Mother Shi gripped her hand remorsefully. I'm all right. I just feel terrible guilt toward you. Tears flooded her eyes, drowning her in remorse. If I had never taken her in, none of this would have happened. You would not have been abducted. You must have suffered so much to become like this. Wu, my poor daughter. She hugged Shi Jingwei tightly, overcome with sorrow and fear. Thank goodness you've come back. Thank goodness you told us the truth. We would have remained in the dark for who knows how long otherwise. After speaking, her tone shifted abruptly. She gently pushed Shi Jingwei away. When she looked at Shi Yin again, no trace of maternal affection remained, only revulsion. She stepped forward and questioned her. How have we wronged you? What did we ever do to hurt you? Why did you do all of this? Why did you want us destroyed? I only hope to find foreign doctors capable of treating your brother's leg. You know how he sank into despair after his injury, with no domestic physicians able to help him. I sought outside help out of concern for him. Yet you accused us of colluding with foreign enemies. You're monstrous, a beast. Well, Mom, I didn't do it. It's all lies. I haven't done any of this. Please believe me. What reason would I have for such actions? If trouble fell on your family, I would suffer alongside you. I am not foolish enough for that. Will you only listen to sister's one-sided accusations? One-sided words? Can you deny that this handwriting belongs to you? We treated you with all our hearts, yet harming our daughter was not enough. When we finally found a glimmer of hope for your brother's injury, you sought to destroy us all. Well done. Truly well done, my wonderful daughter. Father Shi squeezed his eyes shut tightly. Unable to contain his rage any longer, he slammed the letter straight into Shi Yin's face. He was no fool. Connecting all the clues, he could roughly piece together what had happened. Ever since Shi Jingwei went missing, they had been searching for her in secret. They had only just gotten a lead recently. Before they could verify the information, someone filed a report against them. At first, he thought it was mere coincidence. But now it all made sense. Shi had known everything all along. She must have acted out of guilty conscience, terrified they would uncover the truth. That was why she'd done it. Every word Father Shi spoke struck home, making Shi tremble from head to toe. Beneath the furious, hostile stares of her family, she dropped all pretense at last. She glared at them all, filled with cold resentment. Fine. I did all of it. What of it? I was ridding society of troublemakers. Am I wrong? Why were you exchanging letters with people overseas? If you hadn't, I would never have found such leverage against you. How can anyone be certain you only wanted treatment for brother? Who knows what shady dealings you might have been conducting? Why else would you be sent down to the countryside? Slap. Another slap landed, this time from Shi Jingwei. You disgusting creature. These were turbulent, perilous times. Many reports relied on exaggerated, vague, or fabricated accusations, yet they could lead to devastating consequences. Shi knew this full well, which emboldened her. Driven purely by selfishness, she dared to cloak her actions under the banner of justice. It was utterly ridiculous. Aya, you hit me again. Shi Jingwei, I will never forgive you. Shi Yin's eyes blazed crimson, overcome with violent rage. She stared at Shi Jingwei as if she longed to tear her flesh and drink her blood. Keep looking at me like that, and I'll gouge your eyes out, Shi Jingwei said with a smile. Yet Shi shuddered. She had an ominous feeling Shi Jingwei meant every word. Shinjun, who had watched the entire scene, looked at Shi Jingwei with newfound fear. It baffled him. How had she known everything? She was like a ghost. And no sooner had she returned than Shi had fallen into such dire straits. As Shinjun spoke, the flustered Shi suddenly remembered she still held her lifeline. Shinjun cared for her. Her eyes lit up instantly. She turned toward him, tears brimming in her eyes. Brother Shin, seeing the complete trust and adoration in her gaze, Shinjun, though frightened of Shi Jingwei, avoided her eyes. He steeled himself, stepped forward with a show of compassion, and shielded her behind his back. That's enough. This whole family is appalling. How can you gang up and bully Inin? You trust this daughter who vanished for 2 months, wandering who knows where over the girl who has stayed by your side all this time? You've disappointed me deeply. How can you lack any sense of judgment? If you reject her, I will take her. I will marry her. Humph. He swept his sleeve sharply, glared angrily at Shi Jingwei, then escorted Shi toward the door like a gallant protector. As they walked, he shot threats over his shoulder at Shi Jingwei. Mark my words. I won't let this go. You struck me. You will pay compensation. Shi Jingwei narrowed her eyes. Shinjun's scalp prickled instantly, and he instinctively sprinted toward the doorway, terrified of another blow. He ran so quickly he forgot to take Shi with him. Only after stepping outside and hearing her hurt voice did he remember. He crept back cautiously, keeping a wary eye on Shi Jingwei, lifted Shi onto his back, and hurried away. Stop right there. Shinjun, you cannot take her away. Mother Shi shouted furiously and stepped forward to chase them. Mother, let her go. Shi Jingwei held her back and shook her head gently. But she is an ungrateful wolf. She hurt you, she hurt our whole family. And now she gets away scot-free, sheltered by the Shin family. I cannot bear this injustice. Why does someone like her have someone to love and marry, while my yaya, tears welled in Mother Shi's eyes once more. She clutched Shi Jingwei's hand and wept. Mother has failed you. You need to leave quickly, yaya. Now that Shinjun is gone, there will be no one to marry you. If your whereabouts are discovered, you will be sent down to the countryside along with us. No, it was a certainty. After how you treated Shinjun, he will surely report your return to the investigation team. It's all right, Mother, Shi Jingwei soothed her. Don't worry. If Auntie trusts me, I can marry Jingwei. Then she can come with me to the military garrison and avoid being sent down to the countryside. Just as Shi Jingwei opened her mouth to comfort her mother, a deep, steady voice drew near. Everyone turned to see a tall, imposing man approaching. He stood roughly 187 centimeters tall, dressed in simple work clothes. Well, defined muscles rippled along his forearms, and his skin bore the tanned hue of constant exposure to wind and sun. Sharp brows framed a neat crew cut that accentuated his rugged, striking features. Broad, shouldered, and narrow-waisted, he moved with purpose, radiating strength. When Shi Jingwei met his gaze, he tilted his lips into a casual grin. His eyes seemed relaxed yet sharp, carrying an unruly, bold aura. Shi Jingwei's eyes lit up. If her parents were not present, she would have whistled. A wild, handsome man. He looked nothing like Liu Yubai, though both were undeniably striking. He lifted an eyebrow at Shi Jingwei, his gaze filled with admiration. Then he strode forward to greet Shi's father and mother warmly. Uncle Shi and Shi. It's been a long time. I'm Bai Zhanya. Zhanya. Boy, you've grown so tall I almost didn't recognize you. Father Shi's distress faded the moment he saw him. He clapped him firmly on the shoulder and nodded approvingly. You've filled out, though you're thinner and darker. No longer the chubby young boy you once were. Bai Zhanya's mouth twitched. It's wonderful that you've come today. Did your father send you? Is it true what you said? Will you marry our Jingwei? Mother Shi clung to this last hope and asked eagerly. Originally, the couple had intended to arrange a marriage between Shi and Bai Zhanya. If she married him, she might escape being sent down. Bai Zhanya's father had agreed. But Bai Zhanya himself refused outright. He insisted the old customs had no place in the present era. He said he needed to meet Shi first and decide whether she suited him. They'd thought it was merely an excuse. Time was running out. If Shi could not secure a marriage soon, she would have to leave for the countryside. No one expected him to actually show up. And at such a critical moment. I came intending to meet my prospective wife. If I took a liking to her, I would bring her with me to the garrison. I didn't expect to walk straight into such a spectacle. A playful smile tugged at Bai Zhanya's lips and his gaze lingered appreciatively on Shi Jingwei. He had witnessed everything and was thoroughly impressed. He had heard his parents speak of Shi Jingwei before, describing her as poised, beautiful, and gentle. He had never paid much mind. Many women fit that description, obedient and suited to domestic life. Most men would be drawn to such a woman, yet he had never cared for that type. He had only stopped by on a whim this time, yet he had stumbled upon a pleasant surprise. Shi Jingwei turned out to be decisive and fierce. She suited him perfectly. She possessed delicate, stunning features. Yet she spoke her mind fearlessly and struck without hesitation. The contrast fascinated him. He liked it. These thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. Bai Zhanya turned to Shi Jingwei, raising an eyebrow earnestly. What do you say? Come with me to the garrison and be my wife. I'm not hard on the eyes. You won't be embarrassed to stand beside me. I am faithful and I will hand all my earnings over to you. If you marry me, you won't be sent down. I will take good care of you. Bai Zhanya. Shi Jingwei recognized the name. He was a minor supporting character in the novel. This scene had unfolded in the original story too. He arrived before the Shi family left for the countryside, but he took Shi away instead. He did not love her. His parents had pressured him relentlessly, threatening to harm themselves, leaving him no choice. Yet after marriage, he never shared a marital bond with Shi. Later, he lost his legs in an accident. Though he survived, he was confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. It was then that Shi met the male lead, a spy who had come from Hong Kong. The male lead treated Shi with endless warmth, showering her with gifts and honeyed words. She quickly fell for him and became his accomplice. She even slipped medicine into Bai Zhanya's food while caring for him. Within a month, his mind grew foggy. In his confused state, he inadvertently revealed confidential military information. Once Shi obtained the intelligence, she poisoned Bai Zhanya and fled to Hong Kong with the spy. The thought of this dedicated soldier meeting such a tragic end filled her with cold anger. But the emotion faded quickly. That fate would never come to pass now. Having witnessed Shi Yin's true character, Bai Zhanya would never marry her. He had only agreed before out of obligation because Shi's father once saved his father's life on the battlefield. That obligation no longer stood. She would not ask him to sacrifice himself for her sake. With this in mind, Shi Jingwei shook her head firmly. Thank you for your generous offer, but I have decided to go to the countryside with my parents. Have you thought this through? Bai Zhanya frowned. Do you understand what awaits you there? Yeah, don't be reckless. Mother Shi cried anxiously. She hurried to reassure her. Don't worry about us. We have endured hardship before. We can survive life in the countryside. But you cannot. You grew up sheltered, never knowing hardship. How will you cope in such a place? You only just returned. You should not follow us. Mother, there is no need to persuade me. My mind is made up. It would mean nothing if I fled alone. We are family. We ought to stay together. I cannot let you suffer while I live comfortably elsewhere. How could I rest easy? Shi Jingyue's resolve never wavered. She looked back at Baizhanya. I truly appreciate your kindness, but I must decline. She turned to Mother Shi and smiled, slipping her arm through hers. Mother, I just want to stay with you. Would you turn me away? Do you think I cannot manage any work? She blinked playfully. She looked lively and mischievous, a stark contrast to the ferocity she had shown when confronting Shi and Xinjun. Of course not. We would never turn you away. Mother Shi replied hastily. Then it's settled. Shi Jingwei shrugged casually. Seeing Mother Shi about to argue again, she placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Mother, I've traveled a long train journey and I'm exhausted. I want to rest. I'll head back to my room. Her voice was bright and light, with no trace of sorrow. Yet her parents and Baizhanya believed she was forcing a brave face. They watched her retreating figure, wiping tears from their eyes. We misjudged people, terribly misjudged them. Sighing heavily, Father Shi thought of Shi and Xinjun. He recalled how Shi Jingwei once clung to Xinjun as a young girl. He assumed she had been deeply wounded, which explained her sharp transformation. He sank limply into a chair, staring blankly into the distance, drained of all energy. Shi Jingwei paid no mind to what they thought. Once she entered her old bedroom, she slipped into her spatial dimension without delay. Ever since she tossed the pendant into the space, she had sensed something strange. A wave of energy, different from her powers, swept across the space. For a moment, she could not access it, and panic surged through her. Fortunately, the disruption passed quickly, and she regained her connection to the space. She also sensed subtle changes within it. She had been occupied dealing with Shi and could not investigate at the time. Now she finally had the chance. She had suspected the pendant would merge with the space and trigger remarkable changes, yet nothing prepared her for what she saw. Her once ordinary space had transformed completely. It had merely been a vast empty stretch, like an unfinished room. She had stored her belongings in separate zones. Now endless stretches of rich black soil spread out before her eyes. A tiny, transparent figure with wings hovered above the soil. The little creature busily planted the rare medicinal herb Shi Jingwei had stored from the cellar into the ground one by one. She focused her senses and found the pendant had vanished entirely. The sprite sensed her spiritual presence and spun around immediately. Her eyes lit up the moment she spotted Shi Jingwei. She fluttered her wings and flew toward her excitedly. Master, master, master. Her voice was clear as wind chimes, sweet as she begged for attention. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with exotic features. Waist-length emerald hair flowed behind her, and she wore a frilly green dress. Her large eyes were as clear and vivid as emerald gemstones. Her round, pale cheeks made her irresistibly cute. Shi Jingwei marveled at her appearance and caught her gently as she flew forward. The tiny sprite snuggled against her arm and rolled happily in her embrace. Master, master, master. Her voice was soft and sugary, her bright eyes fixed unblinkingly on Shi Jingwei. It was impossible not to grow fond of her. Master, I'm Mumu. You're quite a unique little creature. How did you end up in my space? Shi Jingwei smiled faintly, lifted her up by the shoulders, and flicked her pointed ear. Ow! Master. I'm not a creature. I'm Mumu. Stop flicking my ear, it tickles. Mumu covered her ears shyly, and her translucent wings fluttered uncontrollably. Haha, you're adorable. Shi Jingwei stopped teasing her and turned toward the endless expanse of black soil. She guessed, from all the novels she had read, that Shi Yin's golden treasure pendant had fused with her space. She was glad she had claimed it. It had always belonged to her. But why a field of soil? Was she expected to farm? She knew nothing about farming. Master, master. This is a top-tier medicinal field. Herbs grown here mature in one day, as if they spent a year outside, and their potency is far greater. Mumu seemed to notice her disappointment and puffed out her chest proudly. Shi Jingwei paid little attention to her words. She sensed the wood, element energy emanating from the sprite, then checked the crystal cores she had stored. Her expression turned peculiar. Did you eat all my wood element crystal cores? Mumu froze. She tucked her hands behind her back guiltily, unable to meet Shi Jingyue's gaze. Those green gem-like crystals you mentioned? Master, her voice turned pitiful. I didn't mean to. I just emerged from the earth, and I was so weak that I couldn't resist. She trailed off, gazing at Shi Jingwei with watery eyes. Are you angry with me? Will you punish me? Please don't be upset with Mumu. I'm very useful. Shi Jingwei chuckled inwardly. Did the sprite think she was cruel? Besides, the wood element crystals had no practical use for her. Oh? Shi Jingwei raised an eyebrow and teased her. What can you do? If you're useless, I won't keep you around. I can do so much. Mumu straightened her small frame. I can tell genuine herbs from fakes, detect the best time to harvest them, know how to dry them properly, and tend this medicinal field. She chattered quickly, utterly charming. Wow, you're truly impressive. Shi Jingwei exaggerated her surprise and clapped her hands. Seeing Mumu grow more pleased with herself, Shi Jingwei looked at her innocently. But I already have healing abilities. Medicinal herbs hold little value to me. That makes you useless to me. But Mumu fell silent. Her cheerful face drooped instantly. I won't listen. Master's mean. I'm ignoring you. Mumu shook her head and covered her ears. To Shi Jingyue's astonishment, she dove into the soil. She even scraped dirt over herself, closed her eyes, and looked as though she intended to bury herself. Ha ha. Shi Jingwei was stunned by her antics and laughed aloud. This little sprite was far too endearing. Tick, tock, tick, tock. The faint sound drifted into Shi Jingyue's ears. She turned toward the source and spotted a spring rising beside the dark fertile soil. Master. I forgot to tell you, this is spiritual spring water. Drinking it regularly improves your physique, heals old wounds and stubborn ailments, and makes you stronger. Mumu, who had pretended to be dormant, fluttered her wings and flew before Shi Jingwei without her noticing. She planted her tiny hands on her hips and introduced the spring proudly. Though Shi Jingwei had suspected as much, joy still surged through her. The corners of her eyes lifted slightly, and she felt utterly elated. Admittedly, against her healing superpower, this spring water paled in comparison. Still, she was overjoyed that Shirin, that ungrateful girl, would get none of it. Mumu's delicate pink face brimmed with pride. She sized Shi Jingwei up and down, then poked her cheek gently with a wing. She sighed like a little elder. Master, your skin is rough and dark. Drink more spiritual spring water, and it will turn fair and smooth. She paused for a moment, cupped her cheeks bashfully, tilted her head from side to side, and spoke in a sugary voice. Just like mine, Shi Jingyue's mouth twitched. Her? Dark? She glanced down at her arms involuntarily and summoned a mirror from her space, with a thought to look at her reflection. These past 2 months had been tough, leaving her complexion a little sallow and her skin duller than before. But she was far from dark. She shot Mumu a sharp glance. You have terrible taste. Even as she spoke, she strode forward without hesitation, cupped her hands, and took 2 mouthfuls of spring water. Her eyes lit up instantly. The water was icy and refreshing, carrying a crisp sweet flavor. It tasted wonderful. Most importantly, she could sense faint wisps of energy within it. It truly was spiritual spring water. Shi Jingwei drank a full cup straight away. It was definitely not for fairer, softer skin. She was simply thirsty. Oh ho, master. Why are you drinking like a buffalo? You just said I have bad taste, but look what you're doing. Mumu flew right in front of her, her bright emerald eyes fixed on Shi Jingwei, confronting her boldly. Ahem. Go back to sleep. Grown-up's business is none of a child's concern. Shi Jingwei grabbed Mumu unashamedly and buried her in the soil. She turned and noticed the spring that had once flowed like a thin silver thread was now dripping slowly, only one drop falling every long while. A dark look crossed her face. So little? In novels, spiritual spring waters were endless. Why was hers limited? Master, well, it can only fill 1 bucket each day for now. No more. But don't worry, the flow will increase gradually. The dark soil will become powerful once upgraded too. Mumu noticed Shi Jingyue's displeasure and added quietly, her voice tinged with guilt. Upgraded? How does that work? A bad premonition crept over Shi Jingwei. Ahem. Well, Mumu avoided her gaze, her eyes darting wildly and wings fluttering nonstop. Clearly, she was hiding something. Shi Jingwei narrowed her eyes. She moved quickly and clamped Mumu's wings between her hands. Speak. What's going on? Tell me, or I'll give you a good beating. Stop, master. Let's talk nicely. Could you bear to hit such a lovely, beautiful spirit loved by all? Mumu blinked her watery eyes and stared at Shi Jingwei pleadingly. Shi Jingwei let out a cold huff. Want to test me? All right, hee master, come with me. Sweating nervously, Mumu wriggled free from Shi Jingyue's grasp and darted ahead to lead the way. Shi Jingwei did not stop her. She watched the spirit fly sheepishly toward the pile of gold she had only just stored in her space. Her heart skipped a beat, the ominous feeling grew stronger. Sure enough, when she saw the crates of gold and silver coins completely empty, anger surged through her. It felt as if the sky was collapsing. You rascal! My money! Moo, I'm going to get you. Shi Jingwei rushed forward to check the other crates. Her first stop was where she kept grain coupons, cloth coupons, and other vouchers. If those were gone, she would truly despair. She let out a long breath after several tense seconds. Thank goodness. The grain coupons, cloth coupons, other cash, and jewelry were all still intact. Only the gold and silver had vanished. Hee. Moo hovered high up, rubbing her small hands nervously as she looked at her. Master, calm down, we can earn more money later. Earn more my foot. Rage bubbled up in Shi Jingwei. She reached out and tugged Mumu's ear. Give back my hard-earned wealth. Get back where you came from. It hurts. Master, my ear will be torn off. Wah, I've followed you since I was tiny. How could you cripple me? How will I find a partner later? I grew from the soil, I can't go back. I'm bound to your space. And Master, Mumu peeked up at Shi Jingwei cautiously, wrapping her small hands around her fingers, her voice thick with grievance. I'm really useful. Her tone turned ingratiating. Don't worry. The dark soil has finished upgrading. It won't consume your gold anymore. She pointed toward a wooden house that had appeared out of nowhere and smiled sweetly. There are countless treasures inside. And it's not entirely my fault. You never said I couldn't absorb gold. Xiao Shui, and I just couldn't help ourselves. She leaned over and rubbed her delicate cheek against Shi Jingyue's face. Oh, come on, Master, don't stay angry. Anger makes you ugly. I'm so pretty, and I'd hate to have an ugly master. It would embarrass me. Shi Jingwei felt the cool, smooth touch against her cheek and listened to the spirit's coquettish whining. Staring at Mumu's stunning face, she reminded herself this was a one-time cost. The space would not devour her gold again. Her anger faded completely. She poked Mumu's cheek, unable to stop her mouth from twitching. You're just pretending to be cute. Who taught you that? You keep praising yourself indirectly. Hee. Mumu's pointed ears twitched, and her eyes lit up. Will Master stop being mad then? If you're still upset, you can ride me like a pet. Shi Jingyue's face twitched, and she rolled her eyes. How can I ride you? Like this. Mumu looked at her as if she were being foolish. She dropped to the ground on all fours and tilted her head, gesturing for Shi Jingwei. Climb on. Shi Jingwei, a heavy sense of helplessness washed over her as Mumu urged her on with complete confidence, even poking her leg with a tiny wing. This spirit seemed to lack common sense. Could she really manage the space properly? Enough, you silly creature. I'm afraid I'll flatten you under my weight. Shi Jingwei dismissed her and walked toward the wooden house. Hey! Mumu grew upset at her lack of faith. She flew before Shi Jingwei, prodding her legs with tiny feet and shaking her small fists angrily. Master, are you underestimating me? I'm extremely powerful. Even if you squash me flat, I can restore myself. Fine. You're the strongest, happy now. Shi Jingwei pushed open the wooden door and replied distractedly. Master, don't brush me off. You're awful. All right, I'm awful. Shi Jingwei nodded along to whatever Mumu said, leaving the spirit stamping her feet in frustration. Ignoring Mumu, Shi Jingwei stared into the small wooden house, stunned. What on earth is all this? She had been full of anticipation. After seeing the spring water and the spirit, she expected cultivation manuals, weapons, or medicinal pills inside the house, just like in novels. Instead, what was this vast collection of tens of thousands of books? In the corner, silver needles, stone probes, medicine pestles, furnaces, and jars were neatly arranged. Don't tell me I now have to study for the college entrance examination? Shi Jingwei muttered, stepping forward and picking up a book at random. College entrance examination? What's that? Mumu doesn't understand. Mumu tilted her head in confusion, then hopped excitedly onto the book. Master, this book you hold records formulas for all kinds of beauty salves. Use them, and acne, blemishes will disappear without a trace, leaving skin flawless, soft, and smooth. Shi Jingwei could already tell without Mumu's explanation. She flipped through the pages, her eyes growing brighter by the second. Ancient recipes for skin salves, whitening blends, firming creams, scar, fading medicines for external and internal use filled the pages. The instructions specified exact hours for simmering. The moment she turned each page, a translucent figure appeared in her mind, guiding her through every step as if standing right in front of her. The mysterious phantom communicated clearly, and Shi Jingwei marveled at the wonder of it all. Even someone with little talent could follow these instructions perfectly. Most importantly, the book promised remarkable effects. Appearance mattered in any era. If she could brew these salves, money would never be a problem. She could earn endless wealth. Wait. She scanned the list of required ingredients. Hold on, spiritual spring water, atractylodes, I know these. What is mining grass? She had never heard of such a plant. Did it even exist? Hee master. That plant grows only in the world my previous master came from. Everything here was left for you by her. With these books, all poisons and illnesses in the mortal world will hold no power over you. Mumu lifted her chin proudly once more. Your previous master's world? Curiosity stirred within Shi Jingwei before she frowned. That's useless then. I can't find those plants here. She set the book aside and flipped through other medical texts. What she saw quickened her breathing. Detailed guides to observation, listening, inquiry, and pulse diagnosis, precise pulse, taking techniques. Beyond diagnostic methods, there were emergency acupuncture techniques, the 13 ghost acupuncture points, and more. Records identifying plant toxins, snake and insect venom, food poisoning, metallic poisons, slow-acting medicinal toxins, detailing onset cycles, symptoms, and antidotes. Tuina massage, bone, setting, fascia release, gua sha, cupping, and bloodletting therapies. Recipes for treating stubborn illnesses, preserving youth, and even concocting poisons filled the volumes. The range of knowledge astounded her. Most incredible of all, treatments were documented for ailments modern medicine could not conquer, including cancer and Alzheimer's disease. When her healing power was at its peak, Shi Jingwei could cure cancer easily, yet that relied entirely on her ability. These texts offered treatment methods requiring only medicinal herbs, no superpowers needed. She could not imagine the uproar these methods would spark if revealed to the world. Shi Jingyue's breath grew rapid. This knowledge felt tailor-made for her. Once she mastered these skills, she could rely less on her healing ability and use her power as a quiet backup, avoiding unwanted attention. This was extraordinary. Still, Shi Jingwei stared at the long lists of rare ingredients and the complicated refining steps demonstrated by the phantom in her mind, and a headache formed. She had never heard of most of these medicinal plants. Hee master, are you thinking these recipes are useless without the herbs? Mumu floated in front of her, winking playfully. Under Shi Jingyue's curious gaze, she pointed toward the dark soil with a smug grin. All kinds of plant seeds lie buried there right now. She patted her small chest proudly. They will sprout and grow when the time comes. And if I have enough energy, I can accelerate their growth for you, making them mature far faster. Shi Jingwei was truly overjoyed. All of them. Yes, master. Aren't I amazing? Absolutely amazing. Shi Jingwei grabbed Mumu, her attitude completely transformed. She pressed several warm kisses to the spirit's cheek as Mumu stared at her in shock. All her frustration over the lost gold vanished entirely. Seeds that could grow endless precious herbs were priceless. She had worried lately because her healing ability was only at level 2 and drained her greatly each time she used it. Now, she had stumbled upon a tremendous surprise. With these medical texts, spiritual spring water, paired with her healing superpower, she could navigate any difficulty. She would start learning at once. She could not keep relying on her ability. She needed to master methods to cure all sorts of ailments. She was especially intrigued by the 13 ghost acupuncture points. Shi Jingwei was never one to procrastinate. She sat straight on the ground with the medical book in hand and began reading carefully. Elsewhere, shortly after leaving the Shi family home, Jun set Shi down in a secluded spot. Thinking about his bold act moments ago, he worried he might have offended her. After all, men and women ought to maintain proper distance. If anyone saw him carrying her such a long way, rumors would spread. People would accuse her of improper conduct, and it might ruin her chances of finding a suitable spouse. He quickly apologized. Littleine, I'm sorry. I acted rashly out of urgency just now. Thankfully, few people saw us near the Shi residence. Woohoo! Before he could finish speaking, Shi threw herself into his arms unexpectedly, wrapping her slender pale arms tightly around his neck. Raised carefully by the Shur family for over a decade, Shireen carried the grace of a city young lady. As the heroine of her fate, she possessed delicate, lovely features and fair soft skin. A faint fragrance of peach blossoms clung to her. The weather was hot, and she wore a white cheongsam that outlined her figure neatly. As she leaned into him, Shinjun could feel her warm weight against his chest. The warmth of her embrace made his cheeks flush. Surprise and uncertainty flooded him. His hands instinctively lifted to hold her, yet he hesitated halfway. Brother June, at that very moment, Shireen nestled her head against him and spoke in a trembling, sorrowful tone. "Whew, I have no parents left. You are all I have. I do not want to be sent down to the countryside for re-education. For more than 10 years living with the Shur family, I never knew a moment of genuine affection. They shared warm family happiness among themselves and never cared about me. Now they demand I suffer hardship alongside them. I cannot bear it. Woohoo, what should I do?" Her fragile voice and complete trust tugged at Shinjun's heart, stirring deep emotion within him. He pulled her firmly into his embrace. His gaze was earnest. "Rest assured, I will stay by your side. If you are willing to marry me, I will take you straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau to register our marriage right now." Hidden behind Shinjun's shoulder, Shur Yin's eyes lit up. She had achieved her goal. She did not reveal her delight immediately, clinging to him tighter and speaking with worry. "Truly, Brother Jun? But I am no longer recognized as a daughter of the Shur family. Will your parents agree?" "Do not worry. My parents listen to me. If they disagree, we will register our marriage secretly. We will break the news after the fact. I am certain they will accept it eventually." Shinjun grew excited at her response, eager to rush to the Civil Affairs Bureau at once. "Brother Shin, you are so kind." Tears shimmered in Shur Yin's eyes as she looked deeply into his gaze, her expression filled with admiration and fond affection. Holding her gently, Shinjun met her gaze and swallowed hard, his heart racing. "Still, your household registration booklet remains with the Shur family. What if they refuse to hand it over?" Shinjun suddenly thought of this critical issue. Anger welled up inside him, and he slammed his fist against the ground. "That hateful Shur family. Hateful Shur Jingwei. Don't worry, Brother Jun. I've got the household registration booklet. I snuck it out." Shireen flashed him a crafty grin and pulled the booklet out from her chest like presenting a treasure. She'd thought of the booklet just as the inspection team arrived and grabbed it on impulse. She never imagined it would come in handy now. Shinjun's furious eyes lit up instantly. He snatched the booklet and flipped through a couple of pages. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go." He grabbed her hand eagerly and hurried toward home. Shireen watched his rushing figure, the corners of her mouth lifting wildly. "Humph. Sure, Jingwei, even if you've come back, so what? I will be the one who wins in the end." "Xiaoyin. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you grabbing my Xiaoyin? Are you trying to harass her?" "Believe it or not, I'll call the police to arrest you." Halfway along the road, a figure suddenly blocked their path. Without a word, he shoved Shinjun to the ground and pulled Shireen behind him. Shur Yin's heart skipped a beat. When she looked up and saw who it was, her face broke into a delighted smile at once. She quickly stepped forward and drew close to him. "Dad, what brings you here? Did you get things sorted out?" It was none other than Shur Yin's biological father. Shinjun had tumbled onto the ground, thoroughly embarrassed in front of the girl he loved. He was ready to fly into a rage and teach the man a lesson. But when he heard this was Shur Yin's birth father, he froze on the spot. "That's right. A friend of mine knows a police officer at the household registration office. I've smoothed things over. Did you bring the document out?" Shur Yin's father nodded, his eyes starting constantly as he sized Shinjun up and down. Seeing his swollen, bruised face and tattered clothes, he curled his lip in undisguised disdain. "Where did this beggar come from? Daring to lay hands on my daughter? Does he want to get into serious trouble? Pay me compensation right now, or I'm heading straight to the police station to have you locked up." Shinjun had meant to greet him, but his face turned ashen the second he heard those words. His fists clenched tightly until his knuckles creaked. "Dad, please." Shireen hurried forward to hold him back, shot an awkward smile at Shinjun, then dragged her father aside to speak privately. "Dad, don't act recklessly, huh? What happened to your face? Who hit you?" Shur Yin's father spotted the clear slap marks on her cheeks, and his expression darkened instantly. "We can talk about that later." "Dad, is what you said really true? Don't lie to me." Shireen was burning with impatience to confirm his words. Truth be told, she would not have chosen to marry Shinjun if there had been another way. He was rather stingy, and his mother was impossible to get along with. She had always treated Shireen coldly and picked on her nonstop. Shireen could not begin to imagine how harshly she would be treated as her daughter-in-law. It's true. Rest assured. Would your own father lie to you? I've arranged everything already. Besides, I've got money now, you don't need to worry. Shir's father nodded firmly, making promises. All right. Shireen thought about the past half-month. Her father had bought her all sorts of things, granting nearly every wish, eager to make up for lost time. He really had changed a great deal. He was her birth father after all. He would never harm her. She turned to Shinjun with a look of apology. Brother Jun, I have to go back with Dad first. He has an urgent matter to attend to. I'll come find you tomorrow. She did not want to cut all ties completely. With that said, she pulled her birth father away in a rush. Shinjun was left behind, alone, the joy he'd felt moments ago vanishing entirely. Shi Jingwei had no idea what was unfolding on their side. She was fully absorbed in absorbing knowledge. Knock knock. A soft knock echoed on the door. Her mother's gentle voice drifted in from outside. Yeah, have you rested enough? Come out for dinner. I made your favorite radish fritters. Shi Jingwei pulled herself out of her intensive study and teleported out of her spatial realm. I'm coming, Mom. She stretched as she replied and stepped forward to open the door. When Mother Shi saw her standing there alive once more, excitement flickered vividly in her eyes. She quickly grabbed Shi Jingyue's hand. Feeling her warm flesh, tears welled up uncontrollably. Yeah, come quickly. You look so thin. You must have suffered terribly these days. I also braised a big pork hock. Eat plenty to build up your strength. Okay. Shi Jingwei nodded softly and followed her downstairs with a smile. When they reached the ground floor, the dining table was laden with fragrant dishes, yet the living room was otherwise empty. The money Shi Jingchen had set aside for Shi Jingwei was gone. Clearly, the meal had been bought with those funds. She glanced around and noticed Bai Zhanya was not present. An eyebrow arched slightly. Yeah, have you truly made up your mind? Zhanya left not long ago. If you've changed your mind, I can chase after him right away. I'd swallow my pride and beg him to take you away. As soon as everyone sat down, Father Shi stared at Shi Jingwei anxiously, desperate for her to reconsider. Yes, Dad. I want to stay with all of you. Shi Jingwei shook her head firmly once again. Sigh. Father Shi let out a heavy sigh, his face etched with worry. Eat your food. Her elder brother Shi Jingchen pushed his wheelchair forward slightly and placed a chunk of chicken onto Shi Jingyue's bowl. Right, eat. Mother Shi wiped her eyes and added the largest piece of braised pork hock to Shi Jingyue's plate. She looked at her expectantly. Yeah, try this hock. I asked someone to simmer it for ages. It must be tender and soft. She paused, gazing at the abundant dinner with sorrow. This might be our last hearty meal together. We won't be able to afford such good food in the days ahead. Shi Jingwei stared at the glossy, aromatic pork hock, her eyes lighting up brilliantly. She took a huge bite without hesitation. The next instant, it felt as if she had stepped into paradise. Tender, springy, rich yet not greasy. Good heavens, what incredible delicacy! It was absolutely mouth-watering. Too busy to reply, she mixed the meat with rice and ate rapidly. Her cheeks bulged like a little hamster, and her eyes kept drifting toward the chicken on the table, clearly eyeing more food even as she ate. The sight of her made Father Shi, Mother Shi, and Shi Jingchen laugh. Yet their laughter faded quickly as they recalled how she used to dine slowly and hated fatty meat above all else. Sorrow welled up in their hearts. How long must she have gone hungry? How much hardship had she endured to become like this? To enjoy food she once detested so much. It was almost unimaginable. That hateful Shireen. She's truly heartless. Mother Shi wiped her tears again at the thought that Shi Jingwei would soon lose access to such fine meals. She piled more meat onto her daughter's bowl. Yeah, eat more, lots more. It's all my fault. If I hadn't softened my heart and taken that wicked girl in out of pity, you wouldn't be facing such hardship now. But I was far too trusting. I even told her our plan to seek treatment abroad for your brother's legs. Guilt laced every word, yet she felt no true regret. Ever since his injury, her son had turned into a different person, gloomy and withdrawn. She feared he might give up on life entirely. She only blamed herself for dragging the whole family down, especially Shi Jingwei. Her daughter had endured endless pain to return to them. She did not notice Shi Jingchen's lowered gaze. His hands tightened into fists, grief and guilt flashing across his face. Suddenly, he slammed his chopsticks down on the table and slapped himself across the cheek. "Whoa, Mom, stop." Shi Jingwei was stunned. Seeing her mother ready to strike herself again, she grabbed her hands and set them on the table. She looked at Father Shi, then Shi Jingchen, before settling her gaze on her mother. Her voice softened, steady and resolute. "Mom, don't worry. As long as I'm here, none of us will suffer. We will have more meat, not less." "Are you kidding?" She had finally arrived in an era with abundant supplies. She would never let herself starve. She had heard the southwest region was covered in forests filled with wild game and beasts. Others might fear them, but she did not. All of that was meat stock for her larder. Not to mention all the supplies stored inside her spatial realm. You can set your mind completely at ease. All right. We trust you. Mother Shi thought she was only trying to comfort her, but still picked up a radish fritter and placed it on her bowl. "Try my signature dish." "Okay." Shi Jingwei looked curiously at the so-called radish fritter when she saw her mother watching her expectantly. It had a golden, crispy-looking crust, round in shape, similar to a meat patty. If it was the original host's favorite snack, it must taste wonderful. She took a big bite. Her movements faltered for a split second, a flicker passing through her eyes, before she resumed chewing calmly. "How is it? Has the taste changed? Is it just how you remember?" "This is my best recipe. You grew up eating these. You must have craved them terribly after 2 months without." Mother Shi stared at her intently, eager for an answer. "It's delicious." Shi Jingwei took a quiet sip of water before smiling and nodding. "Haha, I knew my cooking hasn't lost its touch. Eat more. This whole plate is for you, I made them specially." Mother Shi laughed heartily and pushed the plate holding more than 20 fritters straight toward Shi Jingwei, watching her closely. Shi Jingwei's mouth twitched. She wanted to say there was no need for this. The truth was, it was not tasty at all. The fritter was stuffed with pickled vegetables and shredded radish, far too salty. The crust was not crispy as she hoped, but hard instead. To be honest, if she had just crossed over, she would have been ecstatic. But she had tasted far finer food now, and this felt bland and uninspiring. She recalled the original host's memories. Good grief. None of the Shi family could cook well. Mother Shi was terrible yet loved to experiment in the kitchen. Back when Father Shi had not yet become a regiment commander and the family was still poor. Every time she cooked, she nearly set the stove ablaze. Yet, she loved cooking and insisted on preparing every meal. Her rice was either undercooked or burnt. Her stir-fries were dreadful, meat dishes carried strange off-flavors, and vegetable dishes tasted as if they had been sitting for days. Compared to everything else, the radish fritters were the only halfway edible option. The original host would force herself to eat them, which made Mother Shi believe they were her favorite treat. Even after the family grew more well-off, she kept making them constantly. The original host could not bear to hurt her loving mother's feelings by saying the food tasted bad, so she endured and ate them anyway. "Mom, Dad, brother, you all eat too. We might not get food like this again." Shi Jingwei awkwardly passed a fritter to each of them. "Sigh, that's my girl." Just like she always was. Father Shi looked at the fritter in his bowl, his lingering doubts fading away, emotions swelling in his chest. Even if her personality had changed, she was still his daughter, always willing to share her favorite food with her family first. Mother Shi shot the two men a sharp look, and to Shi Jingyue's shock, she took the fritters back off their plates. She stroked Shi Jingyue's head gently. "Be good, don't give these away. Don't worry about running out, I fried plenty more. We can bring them on the train in a couple of days." Shi Jingwei wore a pained expression. "More of these?" This overwhelming affection was difficult to bear. The fritters were dry and hard to swallow. Shi Jingchen raised an eyebrow, observing everything quietly, and let out a soft chuckle. "Brother." Shi Jingwei turned to him like spotting a lifeline. She still wanted room in her stomach for other delicacies. Shi Jingchen smiled fondly and shook his head toward Mother Shi. "Mom, stop pushing so many fritters on Yaya. Her stomach can only hold so much. If she fills up on these, she won't have space left for chicken. Do you want to make her uncomfortably full?" His tone carried gentle teasing. "Oh, right. How could I forget?" Mother Shi slapped her forehead. She quickly moved the plate of fritters to the edge of the table and pushed the chicken and pork hock toward Shi Jingwei, watching her eat. Watching her take big mouthfuls of meat and sip water, Mother Shi suddenly found her own appetite stirring. "Mom, Dad, please eat too. Don't just stare at me. Shi Jingwei glanced up and noticed all three pairs of eyes fixed on her, so she urged them to join the meal. Of course we will. For a moment, the dining table was filled with warmth and harmony. Everyone set aside the worries of the day, forgetting their upcoming departure from Shanghai, smiles spreading across their faces. Shi Jingchen looked around. Seeing his parents wear such genuine, long, lost smiles instead of their usual gloomy faces, the corners of his lips lifted again. It was perfect. Mom, Dad, I'm finished eating. I'm heading out for a while, I'll be back soon. Don't wait up for me. After dinner, the night was dark, the perfect chance to retrieve valuables. Shi Jingwei jumped up from the table like a nimble rabbit and hurried out of the house, leaving the three family members staring blankly at her retreating back. Wait, yeah. Where are you going at night? Be careful. Stay away from quiet, empty places. Thinking of what had happened previously, Mother Shi's heart lurched. She stood up abruptly and hurried forward, wishing she could follow her daughter. But Shi Jingwei moved swiftly like a bird, vanishing out of sight. No matter how anxious she felt, she could only stare worriedly in the direction she had left, clutching the hem of her trousers tightly. If one looked closely, her grip was so tight it creased the fabric. It's all right. Have you forgotten how Yaya acted today? Our daughter is nothing like she used to be. Trust her. She won't get hurt. Father Shi stepped forward and patted his wife's shoulder to soothe her, his voice calm. Yet worry lingered deep in his eyes. He feared losing his newly recovered daughter all over again. Let's go. We've been stressed all day, hit by so many shocks. We're exhausted. Let's rest early. Father Shi wrapped an arm around Mother Shi's shoulders and guided her toward the bedroom. I'll handle the housework tonight. All right. Mother Shi remained deeply troubled, every thought fixed on Shi Jingwei, but she nodded and walked with him. Halfway there, she suddenly remembered something. She spun around and rushed toward the door, urgency in her voice. Lao Shi, I need to head out too. Wait for me at home. With that, she hurried out the door in a flurry. Father Shi and Shi Jingchen were left staring at each other. After several seconds, Father Shi felt the warmth slip from his hand and let out a helpless laugh. He looked down at Shi Jingchen's legs, grief heavy in his gaze. He had no idea what the future held. Shi Jingchen's eyes darkened. His grip on his wheelchair tightened until his fingertips turned pale. Guilt flashed across his face. If not for his broken legs, his mother would never have risked reaching out to contacts overseas for treatment. That was how Shi had gotten hold of the information and reported them. Why hadn't he just ended everything back then? Shi Jingwei had no idea her elder brother was drowning in self-blame. She had already reached the Shin family's neighborhood. Unlike the Shi family, the Shin family was not native to Shanghai and owned no ancestral property in the city. They lived with Shin Jun's father inside the military compound. The compound was heavily guarded, enclosed by tall red brick walls with sentries rotating shifts day and night. Only military families resided within its bounds. Ordinarily, outsiders were not permitted entry. Fortunately, Shi Jingwei possessed short-range teleportation, capable of moving up to 10 meters at a time. Shin Jun's brick house stood very close to the compound gate. Waiting for a moment when no one was passing by, she used successive teleports to slip inside the house. The Shin family lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with a separate kitchen. She had visited countless times as a child and knew every corner well. They ate early and turned in early. The kitchen would be empty at this hour. She landed silently in the corner of the kitchen, beside a pile of firewood. Ow, it hurts, Mom. Go easy. The walls were thin, and Shin Jun's pained groans drifted into her ears from the living room. I'm trying my best. Take it slow, my boy. Mother Shin dabbed medicine onto his face. Seeing his agonized expression and his once handsome face battered and bruised, she felt a mix of heartache and rage. That wicked Shi Jingwei. I never thought she would be such a shrew. She dared to beat you like this out in broad daylight. Tomorrow I'm marching over to their house to demand compensation. This humiliation cannot stand. We treated them kindly, and this is how they repay us? They are shameless. Thank goodness you didn't marry that hot-tempered woman. Our family would never have known peace. Mother Shin grew increasingly furious thinking about her beloved son being badly beaten, and she ranted more and more heatedly. She slammed her palm hard on the table at last. First thing tomorrow morning, I'm going straight to the investigation unit. I won't let Shi Jingwei get away with this. Humph. She let out a scornful cold laugh, her face twisted with malice. None of the warm affection she had shown the original Shi Jingwei remained. I always thought she had a tempting look, but she seemed gentle and decent, barely good enough for my son. Now who knows what trouble she's gotten herself into. Without you, I doubt anyone would dare marry a girl with such a ruined reputation. How dare she terminate the engagement and look down on you? She's asking for trouble. Tomorrow, I won't just report her. I'll spread word of her disgrace far and wide and make her the laughingstock of all Shanghai. Mother Shin worked herself into a frenzy, spraying saliva as she spoke. Watching her repulsive face and listening to her shrill words, the coldness in Shi Jingyue's eyes deepened. That's enough, stop talking. Beside them, Father Shin clenched his fists tightly and said nothing. After a long while, he let out a heavy sigh. Let it go. Don't dwell on this matter. Shi Jingwei acted terribly, but her father Shi Bingqing once saved my life. Show some mercy for his sake. We don't need to push them to the brink. What's more, we watched Jingwei grow up. Perhaps she was forced into this. He paused and glanced at Shinjun, his gaze full of disapproval. You acted foolishly. How could you let her be taken away? Sigh. Let it go. How can we let it go? Mother Shin exploded before he finished speaking. She stood abruptly, planted her hands on her hips, and shouted directly at Father Shin. Are you even a man? Our son has been wronged so badly, and you want to hide your head in the sand? I've wanted to say this for ages. Do you really think Shi Bingchong saved you out of kindness? He only wanted to earn merit. He simply shoved you out of harm's way and gained your lifelong gratitude without suffering any harm himself. During that war, he won a first-class merit citation, built a reputation as a brave man who risked his life to save others, and was promoted directly to regiment commander. What deep scheming. Don't make unfounded guesses about him. He is not that kind of person. Though Father Shin spoke these words, anyone watching closely could see his fists slowly tightening. Deep down, he partially agreed with her. Shi Jingwei nearly laughed out of anger. Back then, Shi Jingyue's father and Shinjun's father fought side by side on the battlefield. When a bullet was about to strike Father Shin in the chest, Shi Jingyue's father threw himself forward and tackled him to safety. A bullet tore through his arm instead, and he nearly lost the limb. Father Shin had been endlessly grateful back then, almost ready to swear brotherhood with Shi Jingyue's father. Yet barely more than a decade later, he had forgotten that brush with death. Now, in their eyes, Shi Jingyue's father was nothing but a calculating schemer. Truly ungrateful. It seemed ungratefulness ran in their blood. Wonderful. Simply wonderful. Huh. Fine. If you want to play the virtuous man, I won't be the cruel one making accusations. Mother Shin snapped, her voice sharp and icy. Even if you owe him your life, haven't you repaid that debt many times over these years? Not only that. To repay the favor, your own son endured hardship and agreed to an engagement with Shi Jingwei, tying himself to a woman he does not love. I constantly sent good things over to the Shi family. Even you were ordered around by old man Shi as if you were his subordinate. Is that repayment not enough? We tolerated them before when the Shi family held power. But now they have lost everything and are adrift. Your son was publicly humiliated in front of others. Must we endure this insult? If word spreads, everyone will know the son of a deputy regiment commander was bullied so badly. What will people say? They will call you a spineless coward. You can accept being mocked, but don't drag me into it. I'm getting justice for this insult, no matter what. Mother Shin spoke nonstop, spittle flying everywhere. Shinjun nodded frantically beside her, adding fuel to the fire. Exactly. Dad, you have no idea how arrogant Shi Jingwei was. She stepped on my face and humiliated me in front of everyone. This is an unbearable disgrace. Father Shin let out a helpless sigh and trudged back to the bed. His muffled voice signaled reluctant compromise. Very well, do what you must. But do not go too far. Don't let news get out that Jingwei was sent to the countryside. Otherwise, I cannot imagine how she will survive. Don't worry, Dad. A triumphant smile spread across Shinjun's face. Mother Shin continued pacing, still seething. Shi Jingwei looked at Father Shin with disdain. Still pretending to be reasonable. What hypocrisy. Shi Bingqing had misjudged this family. None of them were decent people. He claimed he was constantly ordered around by Shi Bingchong. Before the Shi family fell, Shi Bingqing was Father Shin's superior. Following military orders was hardly being bossed about. She had never heard anyone twist the meaning of words so shamelessly. What's more, it was Mother Shin who had always brought Shinjun over to spend time with Shi Jingyue's mother. After countless meetings, The two women thought Shinjun and Shi Jingwei made a lovely pair, so they arranged the childhood engagement. Now they claimed their family endured hardship for the engagement. They were masters of shifting blame. She also claimed she regularly sent gifts to the Shi household. Those exchanges were mutual courtesies between the two families. How ridiculous everything sounded now. Rage burned hotter inside Shi Jingwei. She stared at Mother Shin's well-maintained yet vicious face, longing to slap her repeatedly. Perhaps her gaze felt too menacing, for Mother Shin suddenly shuddered violently. A strange sense of unease washed over her. Darkness settled outside. Weariness crept over Shi Jingwei. She yawned repeatedly. Mother Shin told her son not to sleep face down to avoid worsening his injuries, then climbed into bed herself. Soon the lamp in the room went out, and steady breathing echoed through the house. Shi Jingwei's eyes glinted brightly in the darkness. A faint smile tugged at her lips. Drawing on her memory, she teleported silently to the foot of their bed. Before they could stir, she moved swiftly under the faint moonlight, striking the side of each person's neck with the edge of her hand. What was that sound? Shinjun's face throbbed painfully, so he had not fallen asleep. He froze at the sharp sound cutting through the quiet. Before he could react, a searing pain exploded at the base of his neck, and he collapsed to the ground instantly. Shi Jingwei gasped heavily. This body lacked stamina. Constant teleportation throughout the day had drained nearly all her energy. Still, she quickly pulled a flashlight out of her spatial storage and swept the beam across Shinjun's room. Aside from a few clothes in the wardrobe and a pocket watch on the nightstand, the space was bare. She curled her lip in contempt and knelt to rummage under the bed. Moments later, she pulled out a palm-sized redwood box. Opening it revealed stacks of banknotes of varying denominations. She counted roughly 200 yuan. It was a substantial sum for ordinary people, yet to Shi Jingwei, who once owned a crate of gold, it felt paltry. She stowed the box into her space and kicked Shinjun's head hard. Penny pincher. She had originally planned to skip his room and search his parents' quarters, disgusted by his clothing. But they were heading southwest soon. As the son of an officer, Shinjun owned sturdy garments that might prove useful. She could not afford to waste them. She teleported all his clothes into her storage without hesitation. She also took the wristwatch resting on his nightstand before leaving. A mischievous thought crossed her mind. With a thought, she stripped Shinjun of all his clothes. A smirk tugged at her mouth. She looked forward to seeing his reaction when he woke in the morning. The Shin family was clearly less wealthy than the Shi family. Most valuable belongings were kept in Father and Mother Shin's bedroom. Visible valuables included a sewing machine, wristwatches, and a radio. She claimed everything without hesitation. The bicycle looked worn out, its chain rusted through after years of use. Even so, it was locked securely indoors. Shi Jingwei wrinkled her nose in distaste, but stored it anyway. It could always be sold for scrap. Truly, the couple were cunning people. They had hidden their money extremely well. Shi Jingwei searched locked cabinets, gaps between the bed planks and cracks in the brick floor, yet found no cash reserves. Odd. Why hide money somewhere other than a cabinet? She stared at letters and documents she had retrieved from the locked cabinet, exasperated. Her gaze swept slowly across the room. She could not pinpoint their hiding spot. Suddenly her eyes sharpened. An idea struck her as she glanced at the papers in her hand. She flipped through them. Most were military documents. Just as she prepared to set them aside in disappointment, she spotted several lines written in English. She pulled out the letter at the bottom of the stack. What she saw made her grin. She turned a malicious gaze toward the unconscious Father and Mother Shin. This was interesting. She had only planned to ransack the Shin residence and teach them a lesson. She never expected such an unexpected windfall. She stared at more than a dozen letters exchanged with overseas contacts. Her smile widened. Every letter bore Father Shin's signature. She understood English. The contents mostly covered trivial family matters. But these were turbulent, suspicious times. No official would pause to read every word. If word spread that he corresponded with foreign contacts, the consequences would be catastrophic. Shi Jingwei stored the letters with amusement. She could not wait to witness their reaction. Their expressions would undoubtedly be unforgettable. She wasted no time searching once more. At last, she found passbooks, cash, grain tickets, cloth tickets, meat tickets, and more. The cash amounted to only 300 yuan, but the passbook held a balance of 2,000 yuan. Shi Jingwei's eyes lit up with delight. Alongside domestic currency, she found 2 foreign banknotes, 2 gold necklaces, and 2 gold bracelets. She laughed. This family dared to keep foreign currency, despite the risks. Everything went into her storage. Shi Jingwei cleared the room like a storm. She took meat, eggs, dairy, rice, wheat flour, leftover malted milk, half a box of White Rabbit creamy candy, and crisp peach cakes. She opened the wardrobe and smiled again. As expected of Mother Shin. Brand new Dacron dresses, 2 silk nightgowns, and used bedding and summer mats all vanished into her space. Shi Jingwei thoroughly enjoyed the unrestrained haul. Meanwhile, Mumu inside the spatial storage felt utterly miserable, caught in a disaster she never saw coming. She had been sleeping soundly when objects began raining down nonstop from above. First came banknotes and passbooks. What's going on? Mumu lifted her head in confusion, only to widen her eyes in horror. A bicycle plummeted toward her like a massive boulder. Aya! Mumu is going to get flattened. She froze in shock, forgetting to pull herself free from the soil. Her clear voice echoed across the space. Bang! Bang, 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 bang! Clothes and sundries crashed down one after another, burying her completely. She was stunned. What was her master doing? Scavenging junk? Papa. Mumu lives again. She mumbled to herself, reshaping her crushed form and clambering slowly out of the dirt. She glanced around and resigned herself to sorting the clothes. When she spotted the golden necklaces and bracelets, temptation flickered across her face. She nearly reached out to absorb them. But she remembered Shi Jingyue's fierce expression last time she tried to touch valuables. She shuddered. After a long internal struggle, reason prevailed. She reluctantly set the jewelry back down. Shi Jingwei knew nothing of Mumu's struggle. Satisfied that the bedroom had been emptied, she stepped before the unconscious couple. She took off her shoe and slapped Father Shin and Mother Shin more than 10 times each. Only then did she leave contentedly. Constant use of her powers left her exhausted. When she returned home, she was surprised to see Shi Bingcheng still awake. She offered a brief greeting and collapsed onto her bed, desperate to sleep. She needed rest to recover her strength. You. Father Shi saw how drained she looked and longed to ask questions. But she shut her bedroom door without another word. He pressed his lips together and continued waiting for his wife to return. Elsewhere, Shirin followed her birth father joyfully to his brick courtyard house. Along the way, she thought her father had truly changed. He had grown wealthy and knew how to care for his daughter. He was no longer the man who ignored her, destroyed her mother, and allowed his brother to sell her in the past. Yet reality failed to meet her hopeful expectations. She had just praised his spacious house. The moment they stepped inside, the warm smile vanished from her birth father's face. He slammed the front door shut. His brother stepped forward with an evil grin. Shirin, dear niece. It's been too long. I've missed you terribly. Shirin's uncle was ugly by nature, with a large burn scar covering half his face. His leer made him look even more sinister. Shirin cried out in fright and stumbled backward, eyes wide with terror. Uncle, why are you here? She spun to run, only to face her birth father's vicious gaze. He raised the sole of his shoe high. Her pupils shrank. She tried to speak. He gave her no chance. Pain exploded across her forehead, and her body went limp. Her birth father caught her and gestured to his brother. Hurry, bring the wooden cart. We must leave with her tonight. There's a young man who's taken an interest in her. He looks poor. We cannot risk delays. Understood. Shirin's uncle rushed out. Soon the two men hauled Shirin onto the wooden cart and traveled west through the night. Shirin woke just before dawn. Her wrists were bound tight, the rough wooden planks digging into her back. Her head throbbed where she had been struck by the shoe. Recalling everything that had happened, she dared not make a sound. She pretended to remain unconscious, listening to her father and uncle. Confusion, rage, and fear churned inside her. She could not understand what was unfolding. Why was her father treating her this way? He had promised to help her transfer her household registration. What were they planning? Before long, she learned the truth from their conversation. Her father had lied about having connections at the police station. He intended to sell her to a disabled man with a limp in a remote mountain village. The man was the son of a well-known local red capitalist, and he had offered a large sum of money. That alone motivated him to sell his own daughter. He had planned everything carefully. This foolish girl. If Shi's wife hadn't taken her in all those years ago, and if the Shi family hadn't held military influence, you would have sold her once already. She trusted you again despite everything. Truly naive. Haha, you're right. Still, she's my daughter. If my son hadn't begged for money to marry, I wouldn't target her again. She enjoyed a privileged life under the Schur family all these years and never lifted a finger to help us. This is simply repaying me for giving her life. She ought to understand. Indeed. The man has a limp and he's 38. His previous 2 wives both passed away. No local woman dares marry him. But he has plenty of money, and older men know how to treat their wives well. She won't suffer marrying him. I'm doing this for her own good. If she weren't my niece, I wouldn't offer her such a match. Shireen nearly lost her mind listening to their shameless, mocking words. A good match? This was a trap leading straight to suffering. A 38-year-old man whose 2 previous wives had died under mysterious circumstances. They were throwing her into a pit of despair. Monsters. Scum. Unforgivable creatures. She seethed, eyes burning. She had trusted him wholeheartedly, and this was how he repaid her. The son he wanted to fund with her sale price was the child he had with a widow. Her mother had lost her life after discovering his affair. Now he planned to sell her to arrange a wedding for that illegitimate son. She would never let this happen. Suddenly, she thought of father and mother Schur. They would never treat her like this. They had tried to secure a safe future for her during her troubles. Regret crashed over Shireen like a tide. If only she had not reported them. Yet if she had not. We should arrive soon. 2 more kilometers through the forest, and the contact will meet us. I'm exhausted. This girl is heavy. Nearly there. Traveling at night was wise. We would have been caught if we moved in daylight. Shireen's towering rage and regret instantly dissolved into overwhelming panic the moment she heard those words. Her face drained of all color in an instant. Run. She had to run. There was still a slim chance of escape right now. If strangers took her away and carried her out of Shanghai, her life would be ruined forever. She cautiously pried her eyes open, but something covered them, blurring her vision. Wriggling like a maggot, she swayed her body back and forth, striving to shift the fabric covering her eyes. At last, her surroundings came into clear view. Damn it. They were traveling along a narrow country lane, not the main road. The path was deathly quiet, with barely a soul in sight. Worst of all, her mouth was gagged and her limbs bound. She could not break free no matter what she tried. It felt as though the sky had caved in on her. Despair washed over Shireen. She could only curse fate for treating her so cruelly. She had looked forward to building a brand new life, only to be dealt this devastating blow. If only she had agreed to go home with Shinjun. At the very least, he would never sell her. He cared for her, and he would have treated her well. Why had he not stopped her back then? Why had he not forcibly dragged her away? Damn it, damn it. What could she do? What on earth could she do? I wonder who this girl has offended. Always strutting around with such arrogance. Serves her right to get taught a lesson. Shame, though. It had to happen now. Her pretty face is all swollen and bruised, looking like a battered melon. Shireen's heart raced with anxiety, yet her birth father paid no heed to her awakening. We need to keep her face covered for now. We can't let the buyers see her until we get the money, otherwise they might haggle down the price. You're absolutely right, brother. The buyers want her for her good looks. If they see her beaten up and reject her, all our efforts will go to waste. Her father and uncle dragged her forward on the cart, huffing and complaining among themselves. Shireen seethed with fury, but she set it aside, scanning the road desperately for passers-by. Some 10 minutes later, 2 sturdy men wearing canvas shoes and carrying hoes came into sight. They had glanced toward her cart several times out of curiosity. Summoning every ounce of courage, Shireen threw off the quilt draped over her body. Using all her strength, she rolled off the wooden cart and crashed onto the ground. Sharp stones dug into her skin, yet she let out muffled whimpers through the gag. Unable to rise on her own, she lifted her head, her beautiful, tearful eyes begging the 2 men for help. The sudden commotion stunned all 4 people for a split second. Once they grasped the situation, the 2 burly men grew alert. One positioned himself between Shireen and her relatives to block their path, glaring fiercely at her father and uncle. The other knelt to help her stand. He pulled the gag from her mouth and asked sharply with urgency, "Young lady, why are you tied up? Do you know these men? Shall we call the authorities?" As he spoke, he moved behind her to untie the ropes binding her limbsy. "Comrades, please save me." As soon as she could speak, Shireen shot a venomous glare at her father. "They are beasts. They plan to sell me to become someone's wife. What? The two men frowned sharply, casting hostile stares at her father and uncle. How dare you abduct and traffic a woman? Do you want to face severe punishment? One man gripped his hoe tightly, his expression threatening, as if ready to confront them at any moment. Yin's father and uncle swallowed nervously. They sized up the two muscular men. Terrified of being assaulted or arrested, they scrambled to smooth things over with nervous smiles. It's all a misunderstanding, comrades. He slapped his thigh in feigned grief and pointed at Yin. This is my daughter. Look how alike we are. How could I ever sell my own child? Noticing the men studying their faces, he seized the chance and put on a sorrowful expression. You don't know what happened. This girl is reckless. She quarreled fiercely with her mother and ran away a few days ago. Her mother chased after her and fell off a cliff to her death. Even on her mother's deathbed, she refused to come home and see her one last time. We had no choice but to resort to this. We just wanted to make sure she could bid her mother farewell, so she wouldn't regret it for the rest of her life. That's exactly right, comrade, her uncle echoed. We would never sell our own flesh and blood. We are not monsters. Just look at her clothes. Do we look like a family desperate for money? We dote on her. How could we sell her? His words planted doubt in the two men's minds. They glanced at Yin's silk cheongsam and the watch on her wrist. As parents themselves, they understood the hardships of raising children. Thinking about everything they had heard, they regarded Yin with disapproval. To lose her mother and refuse to attend her funeral struck them as cold and ungrateful. Young lady, how could you act like this? One man tried to reason with her. No grievance should persist in the face of your mother's passing. He's lying. Don't believe a word he says. Yin cut him off frantically. My mother died a long time ago. She had been trying to interrupt her father's fabricated story from the start, but her uncle kept talking over her. Her heart sank as she watched the two men gradually be persuaded. She knew preconceived notions would work against her. She would have to rely on herself. Fortunately, the other man had loosened half the ropes. While her father distracted the strangers, she freed her hands completely. Seeing her uncle closing in, she shoved him hard with a furious shout. You monster! Then she turned and ran for all she was worth. Come back here. Yin, do you want to get yourself killed? This is an excellent match for you. You're being foolish. Yin's father burned with rage and sprinted after her. Her uncle followed close behind, shooting a hateful glare at the two men, blaming them for meddling. The chase unfolded along the quiet country lane. The two farmers scratched their heads and exchanged a look. Should we go after them? Why bother? That woman seems difficult. She looked ready to attack us a moment ago. They turned to resume their journey to the fields, but suddenly both froze. Their gazes locked onto the empty wooden cart left behind on the road. Behind her, the sound of pursuing footsteps grew louder, filling Yin with panic. The uneven track nearly sent her tumbling repeatedly. Spoiled from childhood, she rarely engaged in strenuous activity, and exhaustion began to weigh on her legs. They were going to catch her. Her eyes turned red. She shook her head wildly. No, she would never let them take her alive. Fueled by desperate adrenaline, she found an unexpected burst of speed. She gradually pulled ahead of her father and uncle, who were worn out from dragging the cart all night. While Yin fought a life or death race down the country lane, disheveled and terrified, Jun remained completely unaware of the catastrophe his beloved had endured. He was unaware they might have lost each other forever. He slept soundly. Jun's mother, however, was in a terrible mood. When she woke, her face throbbed painfully. She was about to get up and check her reflection when she noticed something horribly wrong. Her home, once filled with furniture and belongings, looked almost bare. Where was her mirror? A dreadful premonition washed over her. Her legs trembled as she stumbled forward. She hurried to check under the mattress for her savings passbook, but there was nothing there. Where was her cash? Her gold and silver jewelry? She patted the empty bed repeatedly, then slapped her own cheek hard. Half convinced she was trapped in a nightmare. The sharp pain told her this was reality. Everything's gone. All my savings. Who is the villain that robbed me? Her shrill wails echoed through the compound. Neighbors in the military housing block heard the screams and rushed to knock on her door. What's wrong? Deputy Commander Shin, is everything all right? Growing alarmed when they received no reply other than continuous weeping, they feared the worst. A passing soldier heard the commotion and called out, "Stand aside." Without waiting for permission, he kicked the flimsy wooden door open. Neighbors surged into the room behind him. They expected to witness a grave tragedy, only to see Shin's wife sitting on the floor, weeping and beating the ground in distress. They stared in shock. It was hard to recognize the normally refined Madame Shin with bruised marks covering her face. Then they spotted Shin Jun's father sitting on the bed, his face also covered in bruises. Everyone gasped inwardly. Who dared assault a deputy regiment commander? A sudden thought struck them. Perhaps they ought not to have barged in. Deputy Commander Shin was known for being petty and protective of his reputation. Having so many witnesses see his miserable state would surely bring trouble later. Deputy Commander Shin? Madam. They spoke hesitantly. The young soldier who had kicked the door froze under the commander's icy glare, cold sweat running down his back. He knew he had made a terrible mistake. He had hoped to impress his superior, yet he had only made a mess of things. He forced a pained smile toward Shin Jun's father. Good morning, Deputy Commander. Father, mother, what are you screaming about? What's happened? Shin Jun woke up to the noise and stumbled toward their room, still half asleep. He was too groggy to notice the state of the house or himself. The young soldier felt a surge of relief upon hearing his voice, but his smile froze instantly. Indecent exposure. Get him arrested. How shameless. Who would dare behave so disgracefully in broad daylight? The women from the neighboring families turned toward the shout. They gasped in shock at the sight of a bare man emerging from Shin Jun's doorway. They covered their faces, flustered and furious. Wait a moment. That voice sounded like the deputy commander's son, the handsome Shin Jun. Could it really be him? You're the ugly ones. All of you. Shin Jun roared. Humiliation from the previous day crashed over him. I am Shin Jun. Look closely. I am handsome. How dare you slander me? He stepped forward to argue, and the women stepped back warily. A few braver women peeked at him from behind their hands, then looked away with obvious disdain. The young soldier glanced between himself and Shin Jun and struggled to hold back laughter. His quiet chuckle cut through the tense silence. All eyes swiveled toward him. He forced his laughter away, his face falling. Laughing at the commander's son would ruin his chances of promotion. How could he be so unlucky? Shin Jun, get back inside this instant. Shin Jun's father thundered. Cover yourself. When Shin Jun appeared, his father's eyes widened in horror. He scanned the room for clothing to throw at his son, but found nothing. Get back inside, he shouted again, his face dark with embarrassment and rage. Shin Jun finally realized he had no clothes on. He glanced down and overwhelming shame and anger surged through him. His scream rivaled his mother's. He stumbled quickly back into the room, desperate to hide. He had been seen by everyone. He wanted to vanish on the spot. What on earth had happened? My son is not acting improperly. This is an accident. Please do not spread rumors, Shin Jun's father pleaded awkwardly to the surrounding women, his face burning. He gestured toward the empty room. Our home was robbed while we slept. All our belongings have been stolen. We only just discovered the theft. My wife panicked, which is why she cried out and disturbed everyone. Beneath his calm words, he seethed with rage. A thief had broken into his house within the guarded military compound and stripped the place bare, even stealing every blanket. The thieves had even attacked him and his wife. It was an outrageous provocation. He had hoped to investigate quietly to avoid shame, but his wife's outburst had drawn a crowd. The nosy neighbors and that impulsive young soldier had destroyed any chance of keeping this private. His dignity was in tatters. A sudden thought made him break out in cold sweat. He hurried to check the cabinet and relaxed slightly when he saw the lock remained intact. He turned sharply to the young soldier. Launch an investigation immediately. Find out who entered the housing compound last night. To slip into a military compound and ransack a senior officer's home without detection is unthinkable. He grew grim. I suspect enemy agents have infiltrated us. He could not stay waiting. He grabbed a coat and hurried off to report to his superior officers. Yet doubts lingered in his mind. If they were enemy agents capable of such stealth, why only steal property instead of harming him directly? He could not make sense of it. Meanwhile, the neighbors were alarmed by his words. They stared at the bare room and gasped. Good heavens! Everything is gone. It really was a break-in. I live right next door. I would have heard commotion if thieves came in. But the deputy commander would not lie. I need to rush home and check whether anything is missing from my own house. Frightened by what they had witnessed, the families hurried back to inspect their own homes. Separated by a single wall, Shin Jun searched every corner of his room, yet could not find a single piece of clothing to wear. Recalling how the women from the family quarters had seen him earlier, he was overwhelmed with shame. One of those women was a notorious gossip. Even though his father had told everyone not to spread rumors, she would never listen. He feared the entire compound would soon be buzzing with stories mocking him. What troubled him most was the thought that Shireen might hear those tales and grow disgusted, calling off their engagement. His fears soon proved well-founded. Once the families confirmed nothing had been stolen from their homes, they breathed a collective sigh of relief. Almost immediately, they began pulling their neighbors aside to talk about Shinjun. You know Shinjun? Deputy Regiment Commander Shin's son. He always acts so arrogant, looking down his nose at everyone. Well, I've got news for you, is that really true? He dresses flashy all year round, like a peacock showing off. You'd think he was quite the bold sort, but turns out he's far less impressive than he pretends to be. It's a good thing Jingwei went missing. Imagine what her life would have been like tied to him. Word spread rapidly across the military compound, and everyone was whispering about him. Even the soldiers caught wind of the gossip and struggled to hold back their laughter. No wonder he never joined us when we competed to see who could pee the farthest. We thought he was just aloof, but he was only avoiding embarrassment, haha. And have you heard? Someone beat his face so badly it's swollen like a steamed bun. It's a shame none of us got to see it. His father, the deputy regiment commander, got over 10 shoe prints on his face. I heard he went to report to the senior officers, claiming spies had snuck into the compound and demanding permission to search all the family quarters. But the gate guards said no outsiders entered yesterday. I think father and son have both lost their wits. Brother June, I've come to marry you. Let's go get our marriage certificate right away. Shinjun was sunk in despair, consumed by the dread of his private matters becoming public. He barely spared a thought for the break, in at his home when the voice, like music to his ears, reached him. Ecstatic, he rushed toward the door, only to pause abruptly. He glanced around frantically and found an old tattered coat belonging to his father. He threw it on hastily and hurried outside. Shireen stood at the gate, utterly disheveled, her vision swimming, her legs trembling beneath her. She could barely stay upright. No one knew how she'd managed to run all the way to the family compound. Her head spun dizzily, and only her desperate resolve to get married kept her from collapsing on the spot. She swore she would never wear a cheongsam again. The garment made running nearly impossible, its fabric caught on every branch. She had narrowly crashed into trees multiple times, leaving countless scratches all over her body. She was furious. The other women in the quarters watched her sprint into the yard as if fleeing from something terrible. Her clothes were torn, her body marked with wounds, her hair filthy. She looked almost like a beggar. Curious and gossip, hungry, they hurried after her to ask what had happened. Then they heard her shocking declaration. Everyone froze on the spot, their eyes wide with astonishment, eager to watch the drama unfold. As far as they knew, Shinjun was Shi Jingyue's fiancé. How could Shireen openly announce she wanted to marry her younger sister's betrothed in broad daylight? Even with Jingwei missing, stealing her sister's fiancé was shameless. Unaware that Shi Jingwei had returned and that the engagement had been broken off, the onlookers stared at Shireen with undisguised contempt and murmured among themselves. I've noticed Shireen exchanging lingering looks with Shinjun for a long time. I thought I was imagining it, but it seems there really is something between them. How shameless. Could she be trying to avoid being sent down to the countryside? That's no excuse for such shameful behavior. How can she face Jingwei? Jingwei cared deeply for Shinjun. If she comes back and finds out her sister has taken her fiancé, she'll be heartbroken. It goes to show you shouldn't take in other people's abandoned children. You might end up raising an enemy. Some frowned, genuinely disgusted by her conduct. Then one woman's eyes lit up and she nudged the others. But haven't you all heard about Shinjun? She smiled meaningfully. Marrying him won't be the easy life she imagines. She lowered her voice so only those beside her could hear. Indignation in the crowd melted into quiet sympathy, though no one spoke up to warn Shireen. After all, nothing was more entertaining than watching events play out. Really? Let's go right now. Shinjun grabbed his household registration booklet and hurried out, wild with excitement. He feared Shireen might change her mind once she learned about the break-in and all the rumors circulating about him. When he stepped outside and saw her looking like a beggar, he barely recognized her, even with her voice. "Emin, what happened to you? Why do you look like this?" We have to get the certificate first." Shireen ignored his question. She did not even stop to wonder why Shinjun was wearing such strange, oversized clothes that clearly belonged to his father. She grabbed his hand at once and dragged him forward. All right, don't rush. Let me carry you. Seeing her gasping for breath, staggering unsteadily, Shinjun thought of her as his future wife and lifted her onto his back, breaking into a run. Shinjun's mother lingered in the doorway, finally recovering from the shock of discovering all their money had been stolen. She stared blankly at the pair's retreating figures. Shireen paid no mind to the stares of the onlookers. Right now, nothing mattered more than securing their marriage. She had to escape being sent down to the countryside. The moment she held their marriage certificate, tears of joy streamed down her face. A huge weight lifted from her shoulders. She felt as though she had climbed back up from hell to paradise. She kissed the certificate twice, then clung to Shinjun, laughing and crying. It's wonderful. Everything is perfect. Ineen, can you tell me what's going on now? Shinjun stared at her in bewilderment, unable to understand why she was so overwhelmed. At his worried tone and the tender concern in his eyes, Shireen broke down completely. Whoa, Shinjun, my father, that cruel man, he nearly sold me off. Sobbing uncontrollably, she told him everything. Meanwhile, Shi Jingwei left home without breakfast the moment she woke up. She headed straight for the investigation unit. Once she arrived, she slapped letters exchanged between Shinjun's father and overseas contacts onto the captain's desk. I want to file an official report. That monster. How dare he treat you like that? After hearing the full story, Shinjun flew into a rage. He gently wiped away Shi Yin's tears and clenched his fists. Rest assured, I will get justice for you. I won't let them get away with what they've done. Those two will be arrested and imprisoned. I'm so lucky to have you. Watching the unwavering care in his eyes, Shi Yin's heart warmed. She dared to hope for a bright future. She would have a loving husband, and her father-in-law was a deputy regiment commander in the military. Life would surely be comfortable. Let's go to the investigation unit together and report Shi Jingwei. She must be held accountable. Agreed. That woman deserves to suffer. Halfway there, Shireen caught sight of Shi Jingwei. She straightened her clothes at once and marched over with her chin held high. Well, if it isn't Shi Jingwei. She waved her red marriage certificate tauntingly in front of her sister. See this? You've returned, but what difference does it make? Our father refused to let me follow the army, but my father-in-law is a deputy regiment commander. I stand among the stars now, while you're nothing but mud beneath my feet. We exist in completely different worlds. If you want to avoid being sent down to the countryside to endure hardship, kneel and beg me. I might persuade my husband to help you. Otherwise, ha. She laughed loudly, then raked her eyes over Shi Jingwei maliciously. You have such delicate skin. I hear there are many lonely older men in rural villages who crave young city women. You might run into trouble. She trailed off, her tone dripping with malice. Oh, I suppose you've learned a great deal about men during these 2 months you went missing. Perhaps you even enjoyed it. Bang! Shi Jingwei kicked her hard in the chest before she could finish her sentence. Shireen was sent flying. Pfft. She never expected Shi Jingwei to attack her openly in public. She had no time to defend herself. She crashed heavily into a tree and slid down to the ground. Agony twisted her features, and she coughed up mouthfuls of blood. She was already exhausted from her long run, and the blow left her badly injured. She gasped for air and blacked out. Shi Jingwei stepped forward and slapped her twice to wake her. Under Shi Yin's terrified gaze, she calmly pulled the household registration booklet from her arms. She patted Shi Yin's cheek and glanced at the marriage certificate with a faint, meaningful smile. Oh, is that so? You dream of becoming an officer's wife, thinking you can rise from rags to riches? I'll be waiting to see how that turns out. Shi Jingwei, let go of my wife. Shinjun snapped out of his shock and lunged forward to stop her. Shi Jingwei spun around and kicked him hard behind the knee. Crack. Thud. He crashed to his knees, feeling as though his leg had shattered. He winced in searing pain, baffled by where Shi Jingwei had gotten such strength. Shi Jingwei ignored them both and walked away without a backward glance. The onlookers swallowed nervously and stepped aside to make way for her. Shi Jingwei, I'll report you to the police for assault. Do you hear me? How dare you attack me? Bastard! Shinjun roared furiously and struggled to his feet, ready to summon the authorities. Shireen gritted her teeth and grabbed his arm to stop him. Don't. What if she has evidence that I plotted against her and hands it straight to the police? Let her enjoy this moment for one more day. Tomorrow she'll be sent down to the countryside, and we'll never need to lay eyes on her again. Once she's stranded in that remote place with no connections, we can make things difficult for her with a little arrangement. Shireen sneered, her eyes glinting with vicious calculation.